This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Car shopping shouldn't feel like preparing for a marathon of paperwork. That's why Carvana makes buying and financing your car easy. From start to finish, search thousands of vehicles with great prices. All online, all on your time. And when you're ready, your new car shows up right at your door. It doesn't get better than that. Buy your car the easy way. On Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
Secrets. We must everything.
Well, hello again, listeners. This is Annie Rose Malamet, and this is Girls, Guts, and Giallo. And I'm back today to talk with Celeste de la Cabra, who has been on the podcast a couple of times, but only on Patreon episodes. So we're doing a main episode today, and we're going to talk about American Psycho. Hi, Celeste.
Hi, Annie. Thanks for having me again, and thanks for the upgrade to the public feed. I'm excited about it. The real ones, know, okay, but the normies, now
the real
on the
ones
level
know.
now, right?
I mean, the Patreon episodes, obviously, like, there are less listeners, but those are just as, I mean, sometimes even juicier sometimes than I feel like the main episodes, but I'm very happy to have you on for a traditional, quote unquote, Girls, Guts, and Giallo one movie episode. So, Celeste, before we get into it, who are you? What do you do?
Who am I?
What are you all about?
I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Celeste de la Cabra, where I do in-depth discussions on cult and art house films, much like what you do and what we're about to do right now. So if you're into this, I can't imagine you wouldn't be into what I do. So please go check that out. I also do a segment on the Punk Vacation podcast, which is an unofficial Vinegar Syndrome podcast, and I review all of the releases on the Melusine side. So that means porn. I review all the porn that they release. I treat it like academically and like thoughtfully and stuff like I do any other movie. And I finally migrated that, or I guess copied that segment over to YouTube as well. So if you just want to catch up on all those segments and listen to me talk about porn for a long time, that exists on my YouTube channel as well. And I just had my first special features announcement today. New Wave Video over in Australia is releasing a Blu-ray of Noriko's Dinner Party, and I have a written essay in there. So go pre-order that. Check that shit out. I'm on Patreon, where we have a fun, inclusive, sort of kind Discord community for freaks and perverts alike. Other things. We're going to be doing Christian movie watch-alongs over there too, so it's just a rip-roaring good time.
Yeah. You should, if you like what I do, you should definitely follow Celeste, because you'll like what she does. And
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. Congrats on your first special feature.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a couple things coming out too. Exciting.
Look at us.
Look
Official
at us.
paid critics.
And we're talking today, of course, about, this is a Christmas episode. We're going to talk about American Psycho from 2000, directed by Mary Harron. The screenplay is by Mary Harron and Guinevere Turner, and this movie stars Christian Bale, Jared Leto, Reese Witherspoon, Chloe Sevigny, Justin Theroux, and Willem Dafoe. And I have read the novel, and you just, but I haven't read it in a long time, and you just reread it. So
I did.
Yeah, and I remember, like, I remember a lot of it because it's so memorable. But
Sure is.
you will have probably, I would love for you to like pepper that throughout the discussion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've just been thinking about this nonstop for all week because I kind of binged the. I've only listened to the audiobook. I've never actually sat down and read it, and For anybody who hasn't done that, let me tell you, this is like, the audiobook is incredible. I can't even imagine not having it that way. Just the narrator does such a good job, and like the kind of monotonous long passages of like descriptions, like I like that the audiobook forces me to sit with that at the same pace as everything else, and it kind of creates a meditative experience for me, just kind of listening to the minutia of every single scene and every single character, etc. So yeah, I read this in college because I actually did an academic paper on this book, writing it, sort of arguing in its favor as arguing that it is in fact a feminist text, because I wrote it for a feminism class, gender studies class, whatever. And so I read it for that because it was already one of my favorite films. And then I read it and I was like, I think this is my favorite novel. I don't know what that says about me. I don't know if that's a red flag, but I think it might be. And I had been wanting to reread it. There's actually a front bottom song where it has the line, I want to read American Psycho again. And every time I hear that song, I'm like, bro, that's so real. I get that so hard. I also want to read American Psycho again. So I reread it this week and I'm like, fuck, man. I don't know. It's so good. It's my favorite novel. Granted, I'm not the biggest reader out there. So it's not like I've read 1,000 books and that's my favorite. So maybe it doesn't mean as much as saying The Wicker Man is my favorite film or something like that. But like, you know, it has stayed with me all these years and it will continue to stay with me going forward. And I think that this film is like perfect, and it's specifically perfect as an adaptation as well. I think that this is like your case study for how to do a good film adaptation of a book, specifically a quote unquote unfilmable book, because they figured it out. And I think it's flawless.
They did figure it out. I agree that it's a perfect movie. Like and I was talking to my friend on the phone last night and we were like, why is it being why are they making a movie again? Like, it's already great. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of convinced myself that it could be interesting actually, because Mary Harron actually dials down a lot of the homophobia that's in the book. And Bret Easton Ellis is a gay author, and it's very much from the perspective of a gay man. So it actually could be kind of interesting for a gay man to make this movie. I'm kind of
look
excited
at what
to see
Nino,
how that goes.
I kind of have a blanket policy on remakes where I'm like, I don't know, what's the worst that'll happen? I mean, I guess the worst that'll happen is the Wicker Man remake, and that it is maybe the worst movie ever made. And then I have to keep clarifying to people when I say what my favorite movie is.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, it doesn't take away from what exists. And like, I'm honestly I kind of respect the audacity to like actually come for something that is so culturally ingrained and so already perfect and be like, yeah, I can do that better or different. I genuinely can't even picture what that would be or what that would look like. So like, I don't know. I'm willing to hear him out, give him a shot. Yeah. It's a real director, you know, good track record. So, you know.
When was the first time you saw this movie, and what did you think when you saw it?
This would have been early high school-ish. I remember, this is going to sound blasphemous to some people. When I was in high school, I had a pretty strict upbringing, and we would my mom is Costa Rican, and so we would take trips to Costa Rica every year. And so the point of the first part of that is to say that I watched a lot of movies on my phone because that was an easy way to not get caught watching stuff like this in the house that I grew up in.
How old are you?
And I'm 20. Oh my God, how old am I? I'm 28.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was like on your phone in high school, but yeah, I'm 35, so there's a gap. Yeah.
Little bit, not much, a little bit. We were in Costa Rica and I signed into Netflix, and lo and behold, there's a whole different suite of movies selection to pick from because licensing is different country by country. So I was like, oh, let me watch all these movies that are not as available, or at least not on the services that I had in the States. They're not on American Netflix, essentially, right? And I don't remember how I heard of it or whatever. I think I was just like, oh, this is supposed to be fucked up, or this is supposed to be like transgressive or whatever. And I watched it, and it like very quickly like became something that was just sort of part of my DNA, I think. Like it's hard to imagine not having seen this movie or not being familiar with it. And especially like it just feels like it becomes more and more relevant and ingrained in our culture as it's like, I mean, it is the source of so many memes. Like every single shot in this, I can almost be like, yeah, that's the one, or another one
Right.
coming up, you know? It's just so ingrained in us, like in internet culture. But it's also such an important and vital work on its own that I don't know, it feels like something that's always been there, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I also saw it in high school and I loved it and it made me want to read the novel. So then I read the novel and I think and then last night I watched it back to back. Like I watched it first just to watch it and take notes. And then I watched it again with Mary Harron's commentary and I was not bored at all. Like this is
No,
just a
not
great
at all.
movie.
It's
So
perfectly paced. Like it's
yeah.
so. I had a similar experience where last night ended up working really late. I got home at like 1 a.m. or something like that, and then I was like, "Ugh, I don't think I have time to watch this. I'll just start it until I fall asleep, and then we'll be back to it." And I watched it with the new commentary that she did, specifically for the newish 4K release, and that had been. Yeah, the fourth time I've seen it because I watched it again after I read the book the first time. And then I watched it a third time when the 4K came out because that old Blu-ray actually looks like dog shit. Or no, I think this is the fifth time I've seen it. Sorry. I watched it on DVD and then I watched it on just the old Blu-ray and I was like, wow, it looks really bad. I hope they did this on 4K. And then they did. So I watched it on 4K to see the difference. It looks way better. It looks really great.
Yeah, I watched the Blu-ray with the 2005 commentary.
And then, yeah, last night I watched it again with the new commentary. And yeah, I just started watching it. And before I knew it, it was 4 a.m. and I was like, shit, I need to go to bed. I actually have to turn this. I have to like make the conscious choice to turn this off and go to bed. Yeah, and then I watched the rest of it today. And then somebody actually uploaded the commentary that I'm forgetting her name, the screenwriter.
Guinevere Turner.
The one that she did. So I listened to that at work today.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just get into it. It's based on the 1991 novel by Bret Easton Ellis, a gay man who is now a controversial kind of figure. I guess he's kind of like alt-right-ish.
Is it that far? I tried to do a little bit of research and I was like, I think that this is just kind of like a centristy reactionary type guy.
Yeah,
Was
I
he
think
actually
he's
like
a reactionary,
Yeah.
But I think people associate him with that.
contrarian, sort of edgy white
Yeah,
guy?
he's just kind
The
of an
cis
edge
gays.
lord. Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly.
Saying that
I
to
mean,
a cis gay, but
I mean, whatever. Yeah, I mean, like it's true. So Stuart Gordon, David Cronenberg, and Rob Weiss were actually considered to direct this film, but then Harron and Turner began writing the screenplay in 1996, and Mary Harron ends up directing it. The pre-production was apparently pretty tumultuous. Harron wanted Christian Bale to play Bateman, but Lionsgate wanted Leonardo DiCaprio in the role, and Harron was actually fired and replaced with Oliver Stone. DiCaprio and Stone left due to creative differences, and actually Leonardo DiCaprio left in order to do Danny Boyle's The Beach. And Harron was rehired and allowed to recast Christian Bale. And they shot it in Toronto and New York City. So one thing that I found out that was interesting was that this movie is very influenced by Mario Bava's Giallo film Hatchet for the Honeymoon from 1970. And Bava historian Tim Lucas noted that both films feature protagonists motivated by a desire for self-discovery in their killings. Have you seen Hatchet for the Honeymoon?
No, I haven't. I wasn't aware of that fact.
It's really
either.
good. Yeah,
That's interesting.
It's
She was
great.
saying in the commentary, she was like, yeah, we were trying to do like a slasher type thing, like Brian De Palma with the gloves. So I was like, you're describing Giallo, but so that makes sense that that's where it comes from.
Right. So DiCaprio leaves to go do The Beach. Stone withdraws. And then Guinevere Turner, later said that she heard from a friend that Leonardo DiCaprio chose to leave after Gloria Steinem, who was a strong critic of the novel, convinced him to abandon the project due to his young fan base. And then Lionsgate rehired Harron, but was still really against Bale as Bateman. So they offered the role to Ewan McGregor, who turned it down after Bale was like, please turn it down, bro. And Harron also spoke with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, Edward Norton, and Vince Vaughn, but they all declined. And then Lionsgate begrudgingly agrees to hire Christian Bale with a small $50,000 salary. And
damn. Okay.
right at that point, Defoe.
I mean, that's like such a life-changing amount of money for me, but for like
well,
Hollywood
yeah, of
standards,
course,
that's like
yeah,
nothing, you know?
yeah. But at that point, Defoe, Leto, Reese Witherspoon, and Chloe Sevigny were already committed. And Harron tried to get Winona Ryder to play Evelyn Williams, but she declined. Roger Ebert reviewed this film. He claims it is just as well. American Psycho was directed by a woman, as Harron transformed a novel about bloodlust into a movie about men's vanity. I don't think the novel is about bloodlust.
No, it's not. It's such a stupid take.
It's really
I'm not
dumb.
an anti-Roger Ebert person, but sometimes I hear his takes and I'm like, is he dumb? Like what? Like what is happening?
Sometimes he was dumb.
Did you read the book? Genuinely, I don't think that's a take you can have if you actually read the book cover to cover.
Well, when the book came out, it was very controversial because of the violence against women. And there was people called for it to be boycotted. And it was just a super controversial piece of literature, which, adds to the mystique. Bret Easton Ellis said it's about the Christian Bale playing Patrick Bateman. It's the kind of role that an actor wants. You have to be very pretty to play the role, and leading men are often very pretty and not allowed to show a lot of range. You're either put into this action movie role or the romantic lead role, and there are not a lot of projects offered to them that can invert that or twist it up a little bit. I think it was probably very appealing for an actor of a certain age to play crazy like that and also look really nice. I don't know. It's the best of both worlds. It's not even something I thought about, where like a really attractive male actor doesn't get these kind of interesting roles, especially at that time. Brett, one of his like little edgelord things is he doesn't like female directors. He said there's something about the medium of film itself that I think requires the male gaze. We're watching and we're aroused by looking, whereas I don't think women respond that way to films just because of how they're built. Okay.
Okay, that's a crazy thing to say, but also I watched an interview with him and Christian Bale and Mary Harron today, and he had nothing but nice things to say, and it was right before the film came out. When was that quote from? Do you know?
That's a really good question. I didn't write the year down, but it wasn't from when it came out. It was like from years after it came out. And
interesting.
Yeah, but he goes back and forth.
I don't know. I feel like people like this, they get something really big that like is controversial and they get like a rush out of it, or they get hard off of it or something. And they're like, it's not taking to offend the like, the usual suspects. I have to say something edgy in the other way to offend the people that now like me or something. It's just, I'm describing contrarianism, and I feel like that's just what he is.
He's just a contrarian. Well, because he's also so a couple more things that he said. He said, I never saw it as a feminist book. It was definitely a criticism of male values that were around me, and it was easier for me, I think, to witness those male values clearly because I was gay. I am gay, and I think that gave me a distance and a perspective as to noticing them more than if I was heterosexual and participating in the society at the time. I was definitely participating, but being gay really is a distance. You are 4% of the population. You do not share a lot of the same feelings and experiences that straight men do, certainly not in late 80s Manhattan. He said, I think I would have regretted it if Oliver Stone had made it. I don't think Oliver Stone would have been the right director for this at all. Something about Mary's style, the restraint she showed, is what makes the movie effective. So again, he's always contradicting himself, right? Like he does also like
literally in this interview, he literally says, I always intended this to be a feminist book. And it was nice that like this director actually saw that for what it was. I'm like, is this just straight up like, I need to sell this movie, and if people think that it's like misogynistic, they won't go see it? Like, I don't know. Also another thought that's occurring to me is he seems to really relish in the idea that the book is so ambiguous, and he likes not telling people which it is, or he claims at least that he doesn't know whether or not it all happened or if it's in his head or whatever. So maybe he just really gets off on confusing people. I don't know.
I think that's his thing. I think best not to take him too seriously at his word and let his work just sort of speak for itself. He said,
I agree.
another thing he said, I think that could be the flourishing of the wokeness in the culture, me being the dark prince of literature. And I write this book that upsets so many people. I need to be put in my place. And what better narrative is there than that two women did it? That's very appealing. When I first saw the movie, and whenever I see parts of it now, I like it. It's about half an experience for me because I wrote the novel. And it's not the full American Psycho. It's kind of the greatest hits. It's in some ways a complicated movie for me, but overall I like it. That's like maybe one of the most honest things he said.
I think greatest hits is actually a pretty accurate way to describe
I
it.
would
But that's
agree,
sort of the
yes.
constraints of the medium, you know?
Yeah, you can't show.
I think as far as that, I think as far as a hits compilation go, they kind of knocks it out of the park, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like there's one part where like he makes a rat eat cheese out of a prostitute's vagina, and you can't really show something like that unless it's like a, you know, exploitation movie that's no one's going to watch. So I love the movie, but I thought this
You would
was
watch
kind
it.
of I mean, I would watch it. Yeah, of
No
course.
one except for us is going to watch
Yeah,
it.
exactly. I read this article by Vartan P. Messier called Visual Poetics, Intertextuality, and the Transfiguration of Ideology, An Eye for an Eye, and Mary Harron's cinematic adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis' American Psycho. And I thought it's very academic, but I thought that his critique of the movie was kind of interesting. He says the novel aims to shock its audience in order to provoke ontological reflection. By neutering the text and turning it into a satirical comedy and hence a more straightforward parody, Mary Harron's film produces a distanced and detached critical social commentary. Consequently, this difference in poetic ideology prompts a number of questions regarding the politics and economies of adaptation as it pertains to the ways in which we chose to address sexual violence as a collective cultural phenomena or decide to rationalize it as an individual pathological disorder. So basically his whole thing is just like, it's impossible. She didn't capture the spirit of the novel, which is more about like destabilization and, it's just like a richer, it's more than parody is basically what he's asserting. Whereas Mary Harron kind of neuters it, quote unquote, and turns it more into like this social comedy parody. But there's so much you can do with a novel that you can't do with a movie.
Yeah,
So-
I agree, and I disagree with that.
Right.
I don't think it's to the extent that maybe he's saying, but I think that it is there. But again, it's sort of inherent to the medium and the market. You know, you can get away with so much more in literature, both like because there's not a budget when it comes to a book. You could write whatever you want. It takes as much
Exactly.
budget to write an insane special effects thing as it takes to just write dialogue, right? Like, and then also, yeah, there's stuff in there that doesn't work either because it's so internal and it's so postmodern and everything like that. And there's also stuff that you just, I mean, you could film it. It would be very difficult.
It's harder to
but
make
then,
like
you
a
know,
post-structuralist horror film. Yeah.
And like, I was thinking about that rat scene. There's definitely a way you could film that in a rated R cut. But like, something that came up a lot in the commentaries was like, we had to really think about the pacing in terms of like, how often are we going to show something funny versus how often are we going to show something disturbing? And like, that balance was really important to strike. And if you included every single one of the really grotesque scenes in the book, like, it becomes a different movie. And like, you kind of have to budget each vibe accordingly because the book has pretty much unlimited budget to get those vibes sort of in the proportions that he wanted, right? And like, actually the violence, when you think about a page count, it's like maybe 1% of the book. It's really not a lot, but it's so emotionally impactful, especially I think because it's so sparse and the rest of it is so kind of monotonous and pedestrian almost, just like talking about music and fashion. And there's a lot of scenes that just repeat. Like, there's probably 5 or 6 different scenes about people arguing about dinner reservations or whatever. And like, in a film, it doesn't work as well to just do that over and over and over again,
Right.
especially if you're shooting for 90 minutes, right? There might have been a point I was arriving to with that, but
No,
that's just me
yeah,
rambling.
no, that's yeah. There's just so well. That's kind of why I'm like at this point, kind of pro. Hey, make another one. Like, let's see what
Yeah.
somebody else can do with this, because there's Mary Harron pumps up certain aspects of the story and in favor of kind of neutering or discarding some other ones. So I think it could be interesting to see what somebody else does with it. So
Yeah.
let's get into the film. We get this opening scene with these blood droplets that you realize are actually food. Food is a huge theme in the film and in the novel. Mary Harron said the opening credits were conceived late in the editing process, and she wanted to establish the themes right away, but the interplay between social commentary and horror in the opening credits, where, you know, there's kind of this comedic bend to it. And she also said, like, raspberry coulis was like really big in the 80s. So it's like this classic sort of 80s food. It was interesting to hear commentary. I didn't live through the 80s, so it's always interesting to hear commentary from people who actually lived through that time and can remember a lot of these trends. So
Yeah.
we're like in this restaurant, and it's like typical sort of 80s pastel restaurant. There's these
Ooh,
fancy
can I say
foods.
something about the blood at the beginning real quick?
Yeah, go for
I
it.
think that it's such a great distillation of like the entirety of the story's themes in one visual image, because I think if you had to boil down the themes of the book and the film to one word, it would be consumerism. And I think food is such a recurring thing because it's both consumerism in the capitalistic sense, because they're going to like these extremely high-end restaurants and dropping like 500 1980s American dollars on a meal, and a lot of people struggle with the violence, but I think part of what is happening here is that that's part of the consumerism, right? Is he is simply viewing human bodies, women's bodies specifically, as something to be consumed, both literally and figuratively, and like they're as trivial to him as the meals that he drops a shit ton of money on. Like they're both serving the same prurient interests or like the same status acquisition, right? And so you get this single image of like violence that then turns into what is sort of innocuous in that it's just raspberries, but like it's sort of portraying both aspects of the consumerism in the film in one image. Like, I just think that that's really brilliant, and that's such a good way to like establish the kind of thing you're in for, like immediately, you know?
Right. Yeah, and like we got fancy foods, we got a fancy restaurant, we got fancy white people, we got waiters telling patrons about the fancy foods. All the descriptions of foods come from the book. Bret Easton Ellis really caught like the complications of food in the 80s, like these sort of insane combinations of things. And Harron says that the foods become more and more surreal throughout the film. So you start with like some stuff that would actually be served, and then by the end you're like, what the fuck would that even be? So Patrick Bateman, Christian Bale, is dining with some other finance bros, and one of the other bros comes and sits down, and he says, this place sucks. Why aren't we at Dorsia? First Dorsia mention. Dorsia will haunt this film. And Harron wanted to establish right away that all of these guys are the same. Like, they all look the same. They all wear the same suits. This is also the first time we get the Paul Allen mistaken identity, because one of the bros is like, oh, isn't that Paul Allen? And they're like, no, it's actually not. So McDermott, this character McDermott, says something anti-Semitic about some guy they know. And Patrick gets like performatively upset. Like, he's the ultimate performative male, right? Because we know how he doesn't give a shit about anyone, but he has this persona of like being the boy next door. And I actually laughed out loud at this part, because he's like, I've seen him in his office spinning a menorah, and Patrick Bateman is like, you don't spin a menorah, like that's a dreidel. And he's like, oh, what, Patrick, we're gonna go get some fry up some potato pancakes. Not like, it's so absurd and bigoted. And they say, oh, I forgot Bateman is dating someone from the ACLU. So the men put down their silver Amexes to all pay for this $500 bill. Again, they're completely indistinguishable from one another. So it's comical. So now we're at the club, and True Faith by New Order is playing, and the downtown club scene of the 1980s is also a big part of the movie. Harron, in the commentary, she's talking about how she wanted to have a lot of drag queens in these scenes because they were a big part of the 1980s downtown scene. And she also specifically wanted the finance guys to be bad dancers because they're posers in this scene. So, and when you watch it through that lens, like, they really are awful dancers, and it's like very funny. Like, it's very funny when Patrick Bateman and these guys like try to be cool. Bateman tries to use his card at the bar, and the bartender tells him with an attitude that it's a cash bar, and this is the first time that the mask slips. It's his first outburst. We're also like, did he say it or did he not say it? And he says to the bartender, I want to stab you and play around in your blood. But we don't know. Again, like, if you've seen the movie before, you're kind of like, did it really happen? Did it not really happen? But regardless, she doesn't hear him. And now we are at that famous monologue that really captures the essence of the whole movie.
Is this a good time to talk about the sort of unreliable narrator aspect of this and whether or not we think the events in this are happening?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's going to be throughout the whole movie, right?
Yeah. This instance in particular, I do think is actually happening. I think there are clues, especially in the book, but in the film as well, to tell us when something is exaggerated versus when something is really... I think everything in the narrative happens. I just don't know that all of it is to the extent that is portrayed. Like, I think the police shootout is the one scene where you're like, this could be completely... entirely fabricated and like entirely in his own head. But I think this is something that keeps happening because another of the main themes in this film and in this book to me are just the ways in which our society, specifically 1980s hyper-capitalist sort of America, is structurally incapable of like making powerful, wealthy white men take accountability. Like, he can say the most grotesque stuff to your face, and because of his power and his status, he can get away with it. Or it's like invisible because like that's just how they are. You know, I think it's like a sort of metaphor for the ways in which like when a fucking healthcare CEO or whatever like is just like at the forefront of all this like invisible sort of structural harm, you know, people just price it in as part of the system. But if somebody fucking ices that guy, then it's like the topic du jour for a year and it's like the big deal, you know. But like the whole time that dude's killing people with like paperwork, you know. And that's what I think this is sort of trying to get at, is like, oh, that guy's like important, so like you can't really question him. So when he says like you're a stupid ugly bitch, it's like you either don't hear it because it's so ingrained into like normative society, or you let it slide because what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of this film is like by the end Patrick Bateman like wants to be punished, but his punishment is that he's never going to be punished. Like he's just going to live in this limbo forever. It's like his hell lives within him. Like that's his punishment, is to be him. So we got this famous monologue, right? Where inside Patrick Bateman's clean, white, modernist, yuppie apartment, there's also this idea, I think, of whiteness represented by the interior. The production designer is Gideon Ponte, and the set designer was Jean DeVille, and they used this mixture of tones. They had this very carefully selected art and furniture to create an environment that would represent this egocentric psychopath. So his apartment is really important in the film, that the way that it's laid out and everything, and it's so typical 80s yuppie, and it's he lives on the Upper East Side, which, if you're not familiar with New York, is she. And there's the sound design. You can't hear anything outside, which is not how it would be in New York, right? But Harron wanted it to be like a hermetically sealed box, and she wanted the kitchen to be stainless steel, like a morgue. There's also this Les Mis poster in his apartment, which obviously irony, right? I mean, he is, you know, the what would, you know, he would be executed during the French Revolution. And there's he's like really obsessed with skincare and exercise.
We love a skincare queen.
We love a skin. I mean, more men should take tips from Patrick Bateman's skincare.
This is a bit much, but like, do something, you know? 3 or 4 steps. It's not that hard. You could go a long way with sunscreen and moisturizer. You know what I'm saying? That takes you like 90% of the way there.
So he's showering, great ass. He also, Harron said that a bunch of girls came over and watched the shower scene on the monitor while they were shooting it. And in the book, he describes a lot of shit in minute detail in this way. Is he status and routine obsessed, and he's a complete void. So that's all he has to talk about is just his, you know, his skincare and his suits, and he doesn't. Yeah, it's all empty. And then, of course, we also get this iconic face mask peel, which, you know, is so on the nose, but it works so well. And then, you know, he says, like, there is an idea of Patrick Bateman, but, you know, there's nothing there. Like, that's...
Yeah. The idea of masking is so prevalent both in this and in the book, and like reading it again after realizing I'm autistic is certainly interesting.
Autistic king. I was kind
really.
of thinking this as a joke, but I was like, oh, is Patrick Bateman autistic? That's like something a bad Instagram real person would make a video about.
I think there's definitely a case for it, but also like maybe this is an annoying thing to say, but I think it's also important to keep in mind, like, psychopathy is neurodivergence, and like psychopaths are still people, and like I think this is actually pretty, like, I'm not psychopathic, so I guess I don't know this for sure, but like I did relate to a lot of like the framing and the way that everything is structured, and like sort of the ways in which he just sort of understands how everything is like arbitrary and socially constructed, and like his response to that is not to like get away from it. His response to it is like, I see the box. I could fit in the box the best, you know? And so there's a lot there that I think neurodivergent people could connect with. And so, yeah, maybe not quite autistic, but like he's definitely neurodivergent. There's something going on there. And
neurodivergent Patrick Bateman.
Literally, though, like I'm just being real. Okay, I'm reclaiming him. Okay, I can fix him. It's fine.
So the next cut we get to is Walking on Sunshine, right? And it works so well. The happier the music is, the better it works, because it's, as I learned from guest Morgan Woolsey, this is an empathy in film. It's where the music doesn't quite fit what is actually happening, and the music is more about identification with the killer than with the victim. His music taste is so awful.
It's such dog shit. It's one of the best bits in the whole book is how bad his taste in music is, and in the movie too.
Right.
And like, there's the meme, because like the way it's shot, it's like peak like cool guy walking in with his headphones, and it's like, oh, what is he listening to? And so it's like a meme to be like me walking into work listening to whatever, and it's like a goofy song that you put on top of it, and like the cool guy or whatever. But like it almost like that meme has not been topped by like the actual scene itself, where he's like just listening to that. It's like so funny to me.
Yeah, with it and his serious face, listening to Walking on Sunshine. So he goes into his office and Chloe Sevigny, we meet her. She's Patrick Bateman's secretary. Her name is Jean.
I love her so much.
Love her. Harron says that she's the only real presence in the film. She's the only real person. And she also says she's like clearly from somewhere else. Like she's from somewhere else and she came to New York, and she's hasn't lost her innocence.
I don't agree with that, in that I also think that Christy, the prostitute, is actually a pretty fully developed, full-fledged character in here. But
I love her. And
yeah,
we'll
great.
talk about Christy.
She's a great presence in the film and in the book. Like, but yes, I do think that Jean is sort of like our anchor to normality, so to speak, right?
Right. We get kind of these like Reagan slogans right away, where she's like, you're supposed to have lunch with this person, and he's like, just say no. And Jean is also obviously crushing on him. And he's such a misogynist to her. He's like, don't wear that outfit again. He tells her to wear a dress and high heels. And so
he says, I like high heels, which is a really interesting, it's sort of saying out loud that part of her job is to look sexy for him, which is pretty insane to just say out loud.
Yeah. And, cracks that idea that he has of like, because later, he goes on some rant about human rights, and he's like, and we need equal rights for women. And, he doesn't actually believe any of that stuff. So again, another cut of a song, Hip to Be Square. Terrible song. I hate Huey Lewis.
It's so bad. I used to work retail, and that was one of the songs that was like actively torturous whenever it would come on, Yeah.
Oh, that's awful. Retail music is fucking hell.
It's cursed.
Awful. So he's in a taxi with Evelyn, played by Reese Witherspoon, who's amazing. And Bateman doesn't even like her. Like, he's so obviously with her because it looks a certain way.
Because you're supposed to. You're supposed to be dating somebody. That's like what you do.
She keeps like pestering him to get married, and he's like, I can't take the time off work. And she says something that's actually could be very easy to miss, which is, she's like, your father practically owns the company. So his life is fake. Like he has a fake job, fake life, fake relationship. He doesn't really need to work. But then
that line.
What?
No, go ahead. Finish what you were saying. Sorry.
Oh, when he's like, because I want to fit in. She's like, why do you even work that job? Like, you don't even need
It's a great line.
Yeah.
I could not remember for the life of me where it appears in the book, but that is a line directly from the book. That line there, I think, is a really fascinating case study in how to properly adapt a book to a film, because that is not something that is true in the book. His father does not own the company in the book. He doesn't have any connections to the company in the book. You learn gradually over the course of scene after scene after scene after scene of him doing nothing, of him like not having a job and still getting paid an astronomical amount of money, and like never being held to account or for anything. That like he acts as if his father owns the company, but like because it's so structurally baked in to like Wall Street, which I'm still not convinced is a real job. I think it's all like fake, like people's like generating wealth for themselves to the exclusion of everyone else. Not convinced it's a real job, but maybe that's just me being not smart about business. I don't know. But in this film, you learn all that information in one line. Like you don't have to be, and like it like speeds up like narrative beats, so like the audience knows exactly what's going on like in one sentence. And so it's like a little bit of a creative liberty, but it accomplishes like what dozens and dozens of passages in the book accomplish in one line. And I think that that's really smart. It maybe waters down the themes a little bit, but I think it's functionally the same. If like your dad owns a company, so you get to do whatever you want, versus like you're just in the in club, so you get to do whatever you want, you know?
Have you read or seen the movie Rules of Attraction, another Bret Easton Ellis?
No, I haven't.
Book? So, a little interesting Easter egg here is in the book Rules of Attraction, the character of Sean Bateman at one point calls his brother Patrick, And then also you might have remember in the American Psycho, the novel, at one point he references his brother Sean. So anyway, the Bret Easton Ellis
They eat at Dorsia.
universe, and they eat at
In the book, they eat
Dorsia.
at Dorsia. He never tastes the sweet fruit of Dorsia in the film, but in the book, his brother's cool enough to get in.
Kaylee Cuoco and Sam Claflin star in the MGM Plus original series, Vanished. When the man Alice loves disappears on a train to the south of France, every romantic memory becomes evidence. Every intimate detail, a potential threat. She thought she knew everything about him, but she may not even know his real name. New episode Sunday on MGM Plus. Finding the truth is a dangerous affair.
All right, listen up, nacho chips. Quiet down, crispy potatoes. This is the moment Velveeta's been preparing you for, and you're not about to crack under pressure. Today's the day to go all in on the drip. Velveeta's Heat and Eat Queso is the MVP of any game day spread, so stick by them, and you'll be golden. Now get out there and make delicious history. No tailgate party is complete without Velveeta.
So there is some like family in the novels. There is some like Bret Easton Ellis universe, like family references. So Bateman's, they go to Espas, and he says that he's almost in tears when they get to Espas because he's sure they won't have a decent table. But then he sees the table and he's like, the relief washes over me in an awesome wave.
Such a good line.
Yeah. And it's kind of this like really stupid, like brutalist restaurant where the menus are made of steel. And Evelyn's, in the book, this scene takes place in Evelyn's apartment. And Evelyn's cousin is there with her boyfriend, and they're these like kind of downtown goths. And in the book, there's a lot more like animosity between these groups of people, between like the uptown Wall Street bros and the downtown artists. This is when I started to notice in the movie that the inner monologue guides the plot mostly.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you about or bring up, is the role that narration plays in the film, because I think it's conventional wisdom, and Guinevere Turner says the same thing in her audio commentary, where she's like, narration is sort of like the last resort of the screenwriter, and it feels like cheating, or it feels like it's dumbing it down almost inherently. And I think that I'm not anti-narration. I think that it can be done really well. I think like this, honestly, and like Goodfellas are kind of like the gold standard for like good narration. And there's a lot of it where I think it is necessary, but there's like, I had that in my mind and I was watching it, and there's a couple lines where I'm like, you didn't really need to say that. Like, we could have inferred that from watching it, but I still think the narration adds. I still think it's important, and I still think it's valuable. So I wanted to get your take on if you think that this strikes that balance correctly, and just generally speaking, where you think narration does or should play a role in something like this. Yeah,
I mean, I think it works really well in this movie because we are supposed to be in his head. And in the book, you know, what's kind of interesting is we're completely in his perspective. Like, we have no idea what the objective reality is. But you know, he kind of paints himself as this like really attractive, cool guy. But then people around him, when they mistake his identity, they keep saying like Patrick Bateman is such a fucking dork. And you have to wonder, like, is he really just a dork? And is not actually that good looking or anything like that. And then you can't really do that as much in a film. But I think that the interplay between what's going on in his head and then like what we're seeing is actually very effective. And yeah, I think to an extent we have to live in his head in this film, because again, there's that ambiguity between is this really happening or not?
Yeah, and I think a huge part of the effectiveness of the novel is how repetitive it is. Like the fact that he comes back to certain things over and over and over again. It's just like, oh my God, it's like, to be this person, what a fucking nightmare. And like, you kind of, with the narration plus the visual cues, you're kind of getting like two instances in one, and you're kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Constricting that into like one take, right? So like you can see obviously that he's stressed and sweating about the restaurant, and then he's relieved when he sees the table. We can infer that, right? We're a smart audience, right? If we're watching this work, we know what we're doing, right? But the fact that he's saying it and in such histrionic terms as well, like really hammers home, like, God, he's so absurd, you know?
He's absurd. His mind is a prison. So Bateman is certain. We meet, some other characters like Timothy Bryce, and Bateman is played by Justin Theroux. And Bateman is certain that Timothy Bryce and Evelyn are having an affair. And he also says Timothy is the only interesting person I know. And I would say Bryce is also one of the realer presences in the film. Like, he actually has like opinions and like seems to struggle with things.
There's a great deleted scene that really embodies that. I think it's kind of unfortunate that it got cut. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
No, tell me.
Okay, there's a scene where they're in the club, and this is something that happens in the book, where he just fully has a mental break, and he's like, I'm fucking leaving. Like, I'm out of here. I'm done with this. And he jumps off of the second story, like, staircase or whatever, and jumps into the crowd and runs off. And Bateman is so confused. He's like, where are you going? Different restaurant? Different legal firm? Different whatever? And he's like, no, man, I'm fucking leaving. But he comes back later. It's supposed to be placed in a part of the narrative where, like, it just doesn't happen. He comes back. So, like, it's sort of showing us that, like, he's not really willing to escape, or he's unable to escape, or, like, there's something about the pull of like money and power that keeps him there. But he has enough of a soul and enough of a personality to be like, this is not who I should be or who I want to be. It's a really interesting and really valuable character moment that I think all the deleted scenes actually are pretty useful, and in my preferred cut would have stayed, but I understand that studio notes, and you would sacrifice some amount of this film's like truly perfect pacing, perhaps, if you added this back. So
yeah, and also it kind of almost seems like Patrick doesn't care about being cucked by Bryce because he is interesting. And he doesn't give a shit that he's being cheated on. And he's like, I don't even know if Evelyn knows I'm having an affair with her best friend Courtney. And he says Courtney is almost perfect looking. And
it's
Samantha
part of, I think it's part of the
Mathis, I believe, is
deal.
actress.
They're all cheating on each other. So he's like, yeah, she's doing it because I'm doing it. This is how this works, you know?
Right. Courtney is engaged to Lewis Carruthers, who Bateman thinks is a doofus. And there's this very funny exchange where Courtney says, do you think Soho is becoming too commercial? And Bryce says, oh, who gives a rat's ass? And the cousin is like, hey, that affects us. And he's like, what about Sri Lanka, honey? Like, it's just such a ridiculous conversation had by like the elite. And then Patrick goes on a little rant about social issues like apartheid and the nuclear arms race and women's rights. And he's clearly very performative. And I think they all kind of know also that it's performative because they're all silent.
Yeah, they're all performing for each other all the time. And so this is virtue signaling, and it's like most egregious and sort of, because I actually think virtue signaling, generally speaking, is a good thing. I think we probably should be like signaling virtue to like sort of reinforce that and make it known that that's a good thing to aspire to. But like, this is what people mean when they say that in a pejorative way, right? Is what he's doing here. And something that I have not, because I've been doing a lot of reading about this the past week or so, something that I haven't seen pointed out that I think is really important and kind of obvious is like, he says like, oh, we need to secure rights for women and rights for blacks and like, like social fucking whatever. And like, bring up the homeless is like one that he says, which is real rich coming from him. But like, what he also says is like, we need to go back to traditional moral values. And I'm like, that's in direct contradiction with what you just said. And you don't realize it. It's really funny to me that he's just like, let me just spout off everything that I've heard other people with real convictions, whether they be good or bad. Like, those are people with convictions. Somebody who says we need to return back to traditional moral values, they mean it. He doesn't. So he doesn't know what it means. And he's just like saying it all in kind of a list. And it goes on for so long. And it's, I don't know. I think it's a delightful sort of performance piece.
Yeah, and I also love when Carruthers is like, that's so thoughtful. Like that's when you start to sort of and you don't know at first if he's like making fun of him or not, but that later you realize like, oh no, he's in love with him. So Patrick pulls out money from an ATM on the street at night. ATM's very important to Patrick Bateman, and he starts following a woman and like creeping on her. John Cale, one of the famous John Cale, did the score for this film, and they wanted this part where you hear these like weird women's voices here to Mary Harron says the music was supposed to be like the voices of the other victims. So we assume he's killed her because the next day he brings his bloody sheets to the dry cleaner where he's yelling at the owners who are Asian immigrants. And he's just kind of like Christian Bale gives like a very unselfconscious, offensive performance here, which is great. And you see again how performative he is because he doesn't actually care about his community and like treating people well. And we meet this woman, Victoria, who obviously wants to go out with him, and he's like, "Gotta return videotapes. I can't go out. I've got to see the matinee of Les Mis or whatever."
I think he throws out like 3 different exces. I think you're remembering all of them.
right. And then later uses her try to use her as an alibi. So Bateman is back in his apartment on the phone with Courtney, trying to convince her to see him, and she's in bed and on pills, and Bateman is watching porn on TV. And porn, much bigger theme in the novel than it is in or motif rather, in the novel than it is in the movie. Porn in the 1980s is a very rich topic. This was the VHS revolution, where porn went from theaters to VHS. You could watch it in your home. And, there's a lot we could say here about Patrick Bateman's misogyny. Mary Harron said that she feels that Patrick has to watch things to understand how to do them. Because he's like a Martian. So he watches porn to understand how to treat women and sex.
Or he's autistic.
He's so autistic. And he watches horror movies to like see how to kill people. Because there's nothing within him. Yeah, but it's not like, it is different than being autistic, because there is, autistic people are not, they have emotions. They're not emotionless voids. Whereas like for him, people on the spectrum, in my understanding, will try to learn how to do things so that they're not socially ostracized. Whereas like Patrick Bateman, it's because he has no core. Like he doesn't even know what it would look like to be intimate with a woman in a real way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just also the porn is called Inside Lydia's Ass, which is also directly in the novel, I believe. And, he's also kind of obsessed.
One that he rents called like Shemale something, and I like actually Googled it, and it is a real film that exists.
Oh shit. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
He also rents Body Double like 38 times or something over the course of the novel, and he masturbates to the scene where she's killed with a drill. He rents it like every day.
I love that. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I just feel like there's so much to say about porn. He's also like kind of obsessed with anal, which I think is, Bret Easton Ellis's like nod to the sort of latent homosexual aspect of these guys. And
that's an interesting take on it. I had read it differently, but I think that that's pretty astute, and I think that might be what's going on there. I had kind of read it as like it's more subversive, it's like dirtier, there's like more potential for injury if you don't do it right. And so he's like,
right?
Yeah,
I think it's
but
both.
That's a wrinkle in the nuance that I had not considered, but that's yeah, I'm gonna be thinking about that.
Yeah, and it's like, not about plenty of cis women enjoy anal, but like there's this traditional understanding that like it's not for the woman, like it's for the man, and so it's more could be seen as more misogynist to enjoy something like that, and there's an anal preoccupation. I mean, it also, you know, if you want to get really psychoanalytic with it, there's the anal stage in Freudian development, which is like an arrested child stage, where you're obsessed with like butts and shit, and and you could talk about Marquis de Sade. You know, the Marquis de Sade was obsessed with anal because it was, like you said, dirty and subversive and abject.
There's a really good documentary on the disc. It's called American Psycho from Page to Screen, where they talk about how the lengthy descriptions of sadism in the Marquis de Sade were very influential on the sections in the novel. And that made me think of you. I was like, well, you're the one to ask about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think, that makes total sense. The book is very Sadian in that way, because the Marquis de Sade's descriptions are not erotic. They're like, I mean, some of them are, but like
clinical.
they're like Patrick Bateman's inner monologue, just like tedious. Like it's
tedious.
Just,
that's the word I was going for.
Yeah. Just like repeated over and over again. And this almost like sort of chant-like way. But yeah, I mean, this is so 80s to be watching VHS porn in your home, and also to like have it on while he's talking to his mistress or whatever. Like it's all very ritualistic. So Patrick convinces Courtney by saying he'll take her to Dorsia, and she comes around. So he calls Dorsia to make her last minute reservation, and they laugh at him. Patrick is in a cab with Courtney as she describes her pointless day of like facials and shopping. And at one point he says, "Is that Donald Trump's car?" next to them. And I mean, Trump is
Oh, yeah, a couple things there that you've brought up. This scene is not in the book. It's sort of like a truncated version of a few different scenes that are in the book. There's this really great scene in the novel where he takes Jean to Dorsia, like under a fake name, and they get kicked out, and it's like a whole thing. Dorsia, I think it's such a great little summation of like the thing. There's always something, right? Like, even if you think you have it all, if you're this type of person, there's always something. There's a really great episode of Frasier that does something similar where they don't have access to like a certain section of like a very exclusive spa. And when they get there, they find out that it's just like a broom closet or something. And it's like, I don't know, just this idea that like it's not actually about what it is or what you get out of it. It's purely a status thing. Like, it probably wouldn't matter if Dorsia served like complete dog shit because it's exclusive and because he can't get in. It's the most important thing in his life. And yes, the obsession with Donald Trump is straight up his idol in the book. And like, there's this great scene where he loses an argument because he doesn't like the pizza at a certain restaurant, and the guy is so offended because he loves the pizza, and he's like so slighted by this, and he pulls up a fucking article where Donald Trump says it's the best pizza in New York City, and he just straight up is like, "It's good enough for Donald Trump, it's good enough for me. I guess I was wrong." It's like, man, talk about prescient when that's your pull for like the real life sort of analog for this person, right? It's kind of crazy. I mean,
and Bret Easton Ellis had absolutely no idea what he was predicting either, which is also crazy. So, and also Courtney at one point in the scene is like, "I just want a child." And at dinner, she's passing out. And they're at a restaurant called Barcadia, but Patrick tells this blitzed out Courtney that they're at Dorsia. And Patrick also tells Courtney what she's going to eat. And he lists off some absurd foods, which are pulled directly from the novel.
Maybe?
Peanut butter soup, salmon with violet leaves or something.
I'm going to confess something to you right now. Until I read your notes, it did not occur to me that these are not real dishes. When I was listening to the book,
That's some
I was
vegan
like,
nonsense.
literally though, but like, I don't know. I was like, I've never been to a restaurant where I pay $500 for a dish. I don't know what these people eat. Maybe it's something insane that you have to like make up to make it seem exclusive, right? I don't know. Maybe if you call it peanut butter soup and you're like, I've never even heard of that, must be worth something. If like a 4-star chef says it's good or something, you know?
So funny. I mean, it's it's just the combinations of foods are just like crazy and surreal. But you're right. I mean, poor like us are like, I guess that's maybe what people would eat. Like we don't.
I literally have no
know.
frame of reference for what a menu for a place like that would look like.
Right. So, back at the office next day, Lewis tells Patrick, thanks for taking care of Courtney. And he tries to touch his suit. He's like, what is that, Valentino? Like, reaches, and Patrick is like, don't touch the suit. Oh, it's obvious he's like so in love with him.
Okay. So, like, Christian Bale might be the best casting of all time in this movie, but I don't know. The guy who plays Lewis, like picturing him throughout the book and then seeing this again, he's such a perfect fag. Like he's so good in this. And he's like, but he's like that in a way that's also like pathetic and dumb. Like it's just perfect.
Yeah, it's
so
Matt Ross is the actor, and he's great in this role. He's really, really good. It's like a mincing presence. So we meet Paul Allen, played by Jared Leto, and he mistakes Patrick for this quote-unquote dickhead Marcus Halberstrom. And this is like, Patrick starts to talk about Halberstrom, and in his inner monologue, like, it's very clear he hates everyone. He feels nothing for contempt for the people around him, except maybe, like, sometimes he sort of admires people like Bryce. And Patrick says it's kind of logical that Alan would mistake him for Halberstrom since they have the same job and they both have a penchant for Valentino suits and Oliver Peoples glasses, and they even go to the same barber, but Patrick says he has a slightly better haircut.
I like the tinge of honesty there. Like, it's not like he's like, and he has, but his is dog shit. He's like, no, mine's a little bit better. Like,
right.
I nailed it. He didn't quite get there. It's just a little detail that is just like, this writing is so good. I don't know. Yeah,
and also it's so funny because he's like, we both love Valentino suits and Oliver People's glasses. It's like, you all do. Like, you're all the same. So Alan says that he has a reservation at Dorsia, and everyone's very jealous. And now we get the business card scene, which is one of the most famous scenes because it's so funny. Like,
it's hysterical.
They're basically,
but it's also like the perfect distillation of, like, again, like the story's themes. Like, it just, you understand it with this one scene. It's this kind of thing that's so good. Again, it feels like it's always existed, but you have to remember that somebody had to write this and then somebody had to translate it to screen, and like just the level to which they nailed it. I don't know, like Christian Bale, who apparently can sweat on command, which is insane.
Yeah, and they said he would sweat at the same time during every take of this scene. Basically, like, they're all comparing each other's business cards, and they all look the fucking same, but they're all like, oh, wow, well, no, this one is bone. Oh, this one is ivory. And, and they're just like having a pissing contest. But then he's like, let's see Paul Allen's business card. And then he has a panic attack because Paul Allen has a better card than him. And now we see him on the street late at night, and Patrick bullies and stabs to death a black homeless man. And he's taunting him using these like Reaganite slogans of like, just get a job, blah, blah, blah. But this, he doesn't give a shit about people. All of his stuff is performative. And he kills people that nobody cares about. Hookers and homeless people. And that's actually what serial killers really do. So that's, there's also a real element there.
There's a couple notable things in this scene. I think this is the first really actually disturbing scene here where you're like, oh, we're not just having a good time. This is actually fucked up. This is actually cruel. This makes me feel bad, right? Because a lot of the movie and a lot of the book is very funny, but you have these sections where you're like, oh, this isn't funny anymore. This is like for real. This is like disgusting and dark. But Guinevere Turner said something in the audio commentary about this that I thought was really insightful. I mean, she wrote it, so she would know. But like, there's this piece where like, it's so obvious that like when you reach this level of status, like people like this aren't people to you anymore. Like they just genuinely aren't. They're like, and like to sort of square the cognitive dissonance of you being where you're at and this person being where he's at, you have to kind of believe that he deserves it or that he chose it. Otherwise you're like monstrous, and like the income, the like wealth inequality like needs to be addressed, right? So you have to believe that. And she sort of says something like, this is a scene that works so well because, and a lot of his scenes work so well because like there's a grain of like we see ourselves in this. Like there's so much where everybody that isn't houseless or homeless, like they see when they're confronted with this, there's like a discomfort, and there's some level where like we need to compartmentalize it and we need to like square that discomfort, right? And so it's kind of, he's not just an indictment of like that particular class, he's sort of an indictment of everybody participating in the system and how we kind of live with ourselves, right?
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot of sympathy in the novel that isn't present in the film, again, probably just for time and just to kind of get the message across more cleanly. But this is also maybe a good time to bring up the fact that Bret Easton Ellis has said many times over the course of years that this is his most autobiographical novel, and that like he relates deeply to the experiences that, and like he was literally doing all the things that Bateman does, aside from the killing, I would hope. But like all the like materialism and the clubbing and the dinners and this, that, and the other, and like feeling like you have to do it, feeling like you can't escape from it. So I feel like the book is also, it's fundamentally like a work of self-hatred. Like he's kind of put.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
All his worst qualities in one bucket and like kind of taking them to the extreme and like sort of pillaring like this like caricature of his worst attributes. And like I think that's another reason why I kind of connect with it, is that like I also kind of deal with a lot of self-hatred, and like it's so obvious that like one, the author both connects with this person, and two, they fucking hate him, you know? And it like there's a really interesting tension there that I think is worked out really effectively.
Yeah, and no, I think that's a great point. And yeah, I mean, you would kind of have to relate to this character on some level. I mean, I think, you know, so I mean, we should also talk about how like men will idolize this character, and when and then there's a lot of criticism of that idolization. Kind of like Fight Club, right? Like people, like men will be like, oh, this is like aspirational, but it's actually supposed to be critique. But I actually don't even think it's as black and white as that. Like, I actually do think it kind of makes sense that men would idolize this guy. Like, I don't think they're entirely missing the point. I mean, maybe that's controversial, but that's certainly
an interesting take. Yeah, it's because with that, I think it becomes almost one of my very, very few criticisms of the film is that, like, especially, and, you know, we'll get to it, when he kills Paul Allen, I think they couldn't help themselves. And the scene is really sexy. And like the way he sits and like smokes and he's got blood on his face, like it looks cool. It looks hard as fuck, you know? After he's like axes this guy in the face and has a great line. Like,
yeah, we would be remiss not to acknowledge that. Like, and that the fact that it is Bret Easton Ellis, like self-insert almost, like, you know, there is going to be a certain level of like self-mythologization there that people will take from it. So, I mean, I don't think it's like that insane that people would be like, oh, this is a cool character.
No, especially when you decontextualize it from the larger work and you just see like the clips and the pictures and stuff, because like he looks great. Like he put in the work to have like the perfect body, and like, you know, he's doing all this like skincare and hair care and shit, you know? But like, I think the reason I'm coming for the film a little bit on this aspect is because like, I didn't get that sense at all listening to the book. Like he's the worst. Like you don't like him at all.
Yeah,
he's not cool. He's fucking lame. And that's true for most of this movie, but I think there are certain shots where like the allure of the perfect image is just too great, and it's like it teeters out line a little bit, you know?
Yeah, it's hard not to do that in film, because that is the origin of the medium itself, is like idolizing people and putting them on this huge screen, and they become larger than life and just beautiful and glamorous, and you know, it's kind of disingenuous to not admit that that's just even part of film itself. And, you know, Fight Club, again, like men will idolize that story and those characters, even though it's, again, a gay man critiquing this stuff. But Tyler Durden is hot. Like, so, it's not that crazy that people would like decontextualize these images and
I gotta
identify
say,
with
you're
them.
really doing the Lord's work out here, sticking up for the Sigma males, identifying with Patrick Bateman.
I'm not even like it's.
I gotta admire it. You know?
It's like I'm not even sticking up for them. I'm just like, well, that's like part of film. That's like part of movie. That's like what people do with movies.
Yeah, I'm giving you a little bit of a hard time, but I think that's a salient point.
So, but also, you know, men are insane. So Bateman gets a facial and he's getting his nails done, and he's inner monologuing about how he only feels greed and disgust. And as he's tanning, he says, "My nightly bloodlust has overflowed into my days. I think my mask of sanity is about to slip." So he can't keep it secret anymore. Like, it's taking over. Christmas party scene. Reese
Counts.
Witherspoon.
Seasonal.
Right? Counts.
There he goes.
Evelyn, Reese Witherspoon, is carrying around Snowball, the Vietnamese potbelly pig, which is like such a rich person pet to have. And Bateman sees Paul Allen macking on Courtney. And in that case, he does feel a little cucked, I feel like. And Mary Harron says in the book the servers were all little people. And in the movie, they made them all Filipino, which is equally offensive, like, to be clear. But she was like, we just wanted to show that these, you know, rich white people have like their servants. And the party is a lot more opulent in the book, but there were budget constraints, so they couldn't make it as opulent in the movie.
I think that's an interesting choice to switch it. I think from the vibe that I got from the two commentaries that I watched is just like it was just a bridge too far to do it, like, because there's a difference between like portraying something just for the movie and then actually doing something on set. And I think the idea of actually hiring like 30 little people to dress up like elves and be kind of demi, she was like, I can't do it. It's too much.
Yeah, she was like, it's
we
too
gotta
much.
bail on it.
Yeah. And I also feel like it just too on the nose. Like, it actually makes it a little bit more subtle that it's people of color.
Yeah,
because,
I agree.
Like, yeah, because the white people watching this movie take so much for granted that people of color are in service roles in our culture that they might not even notice that at first.
Yeah. I think it works in the book because you're just like mentioning it and not necessarily sitting with the visual of that. But I think, it might be a little bit too much visually, and it might,
it also might,
I think
veer into the realm too much of comedy, of like slapstick.
Yeah.
Because people are ableist, and when they see
that's a real thing where like an audience, they might actually think it's being played straight and it actually is funny, as opposed to like kind of a horrifying thing, right? Right.
So Patrick talks to Paul Allen, and he lets him continue to believe that he's Marcus Halberstrom, and he insists they have dinner. So the next we see them, Bateman is meeting Paul Allen at Texarkana, which is like a kind of unchic more unchic restaurant, and Alan belittles how unpopular the restaurant is, but Bateman takes him there because he knows they're less likely to be seen there. But then he also says, like, is that Ivana Trump? So more Trump. And he also at one point says to Paul Allen, I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane? And Allen seems not to hear him. So Paul Allen asks
that one.
What? Go ahead.
Sorry,
yeah.
I think that one in particular, because before we had that where like there's a class divide when he says shit like that, and like it just gets brushed off or doesn't get hurt because of the reasons I articulated earlier. But with this one, I think it's just that these people are pathologically incapable of like listening to somebody other than their own fucking thoughts or voice. And so like he's literally not listening to him. Like they're only there. Like there's something that I thought about a lot sitting with this in the movie and in the book is I'm like, what are you getting out of this? You guys aren't talking about anything. You're not connecting. You're just spending money and eating. And like, I don't know. What are you getting out of that? And it's so clear that it's not connection, right? Because they literally aren't hearing the words that they're saying to each other.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So Paul asks where Cecilia, Marcus Halberstrom's girlfriend, is, and Patrick says, oh, she's with Evelyn. And Alan says Evelyn has a great ass, but she dates Patrick Bateman, who he thinks is a fucking dork. And Patrick like smiles. This is another meme face. He smiles, but you can tell he's seething with rage.
Yeah, he laughs a little too hard at it. It's good.
He's like, and that gif is like famous. Like people use that all the time. Paul Allen's death scene. So back at Bateman's apartment, where he's already got all the newspapers set up for cleanup, he goes on this rant about Huey Lewis and the news. And there's a scene where he like takes his meds, which I cut it out. I'm so tired of like crazy people taking their meds in movies. But I will
say
it's
think? Well, in the book he's taking Xanax constantly.
Okay, because it's like not clear that it's Xanax. I think that would be more. It would be better if it was more clear that it was specifically Xanax.
Yeah. It's like, and the frequency increases the more he like loses his grip, and the more he's like he needs to satiate his like pathological anxiety with like murder. He's like, I mean, it's like there's a passage in the, I don't remember exactly, but it was some absurd amount. I think he said like every 20 minutes or something he's popping another one. So I think that's a little bit of a nod to like fans of the book, maybe. Right,
that makes sense. And he puts on.
But I see what you're saying, that it might have the wrong impression. I see what you're saying.
It's more effective because it's like, oh, he's a fucking addict. But if it's like, I don't know, like a mood stabilizer, an antipsychotic or something, it's like, okay, we get it, he's crazy. But the Xanax, it should have been more clear that it was Xanax.
That could also have been a studio note where it's like, we can't implicate the audience too much. We have to have some more barriers of separation from like a normal person, you know? I wonder about that.
Interesting. So he puts on this like sheer white raincoat, and his manic acting, Christian Bale's manic acting, and this is amazing, where he's like, hip to be square, like his little dance that he does. And then he's ranting about it, and he murders Paul Allen with an axe. And as he's murdering him, he's like, make a reservation at Dorsia now, you fucking stupid bastard. And he's full of rage during the kill, but then he's completely calm afterwards. What were you gonna say?
He's so good. Like again, it's the sort of thing that's so good that you take it for granted. But I was watching him and I was like, oh, this is just straight up one of the all-time great performances. Like this should have been an Oscar winner, like straight up. And I watched a quick interview with him that was really insightful, where he was talking about how like this is actually like kind of an actor's worst nightmare, because like there's no internal motivation there to tap into. The character is playing a character, is constructing a character. And so you have to get kind of meta with it, and you have to kind of abandon all the rules of acting. And like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not an actor myself, so like maybe this is I'm not describing it perfectly, but like it's interesting to be playing a character who's playing a character but not knowing that he's doing that consciously, or not like a literal actor playing an actor or something like that, you know. Just a really interesting, like sort of subtle, unique role.
So I also love how he like sits there and like smokes a cigar afterwards. Very sexy. We have to admit, I'm telling you, the
It's
Sigma
hard.
males, they have kind of
I don't know what to say.
here.
Like, this scene is hard, and like,
Yeah,
I don't know,
it
the way his
goes really
legs are
hard.
spread, it's like big dick energy going on.
Yeah,
and like,
yeah.
look, perfect casting. Jared Leto. If there ever was a person to root for getting axed in the face, I'm just saying. Apparently, he read for the role too, and they didn't quite. Can you imagine Jared Leto in the lead?
No.
I guess it's more hateable, but I just don't think it would work.
So Patrick drags Paul Allen's body out of his building in a bag, and his doorman does nothing, and it even leaves a streak of blood.
Oh my God, there's so much blood, and he's just like, the doorman is just like, yep, that's typical.
And he runs into Louis Carruthers on the street while he's stuffing Allen's body into his trunk. But Louis is like, "Oh my God, it's a gorgeous overnight bag."
I think that's my favorite Lewis moment in the film.
Yeah.
Where did you get that overnight bag? It's so funny to say about like a bleeding corpse.
Yes, it's so good. Patrick takes the body to Paul Allen's apartment, where he freaks out because Paul Allen has a better apartment than him. And he sets about to make it look like Paul went to London unexpectedly.
Yeah, this was the part where it really struck me that the narration might be a little bit redundant, because he's saying that he's making it look like he's leaving for a vacation as he's packing a suitcase, and I'm like, that's pretty obvious
like we get
from what we're
that.
seeing,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
That was maybe the one part where I was like, I don't know that we need this here, but it's also, there's something about the frequency of the internal narration that kind of adds to his character, you know?
Right. So he is in his office, next scene, listening to Lady in Red, another terrible song.
It's so funny.
And he's like zen listening to Lady in Red and in his office. And Jean comes in and she's wearing a skirt and heels. And she says Detective Willem Dafoe, Detective Donald Kimball, is there to see him. And he's there to investigate the disappearance of Paul Allen. And so this is our first time meeting Willem Dafoe.
Yeah,
And
quick structural note about this. This is another thing that I thought was really smart adaptation work here, because you have to kind of construct a narrative out of this story, because there's not really a like traditional one. And this is like maybe the most cinematic tension, is like the detective shows up and is like, he might get caught. There's some suspense there. In the book, it's one long scene and that's it. It never comes up again. And in this one, they break up. It all comes from the book, but they break it up into like 3 different scenes that happen at different times to kind of maintain that tension and create like a narrative thread. I thought that was really smart.
Yes. And I also love how it's the most traditional cinematic thing in the movie, and you think it's going to go somewhere and it never does. And also Mary Harron told Mary Harron told Willem Dafoe to play the scenes in different ways. Like, 1, you don't think he's guilty. 2, you do think he's guilty. And so it mixes it up, right? They mixed it up in the editing. So it kind
another
of
great masterclass
effect
in directing and editing. Like,
yeah.
That's so brilliant.
You don't know. Like, one minute you're like, oh, he doesn't think he's guilty. And then the next you're like, he knows. So which is just mirroring Patrick's anxiety. So we learned some things from this line of questioning, right? Patrick is only 27 and he went to Harvard.
I had a moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm older than Patrick Bateman now. I don't like that.
I'm way older than Patrick Bateman. And he says he doesn't know much about Paul Allen except that he's part of that whole Yale thing. And
Yale thing. It's so good.
Detective Kimball is like, what is that? And he's like, well, that he's probably a closet homosexual who does a lot of cocaine. But if you notice, he says it in the past tense. Like, he was a closeted homosexual who did a lot of cocaine.
That's a good pull. I didn't realize that.
So he's trying to make him look like, like he's just a crazy guy who could disappear at any moment.
Yeah, I like that the pull for the craziest thing you can think of is that he's gay.
Right. Closet homosexual. So the conversation becomes slightly adversarial and Patrick is nervous, and Someone thought that he saw Paul Allen in London, actually, but it was a case of mistaken identity. And this is the great line
cases.
Right, many such cases throughout this movie. And there's that great line where Patrick Bateman is like, I have to meet Cliff Huxtable at the Four Seasons. So Patrick does stomach crunches in the next scene while watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Just again, he has to watch things to see how to do them, but also probably enjoys watching women get murdered.
There's a little sorry, I know I'm dragging this. There's a little scene. There's a little moment in the interrogation scene that has always I feel like I don't quite get what it's doing, and I wanted to hear your take on it. It's really good and it's really funny, but like I'm curious and I think I get it at this point, but I just want to get your take on it. When Willem Dafoe pulls out the Huey Lewis CD and he's like, this is great stuff. Have you heard it? And he's just like, no, he's too black sounding for me. Like that's such a crazy thing to say. Oh, is that later? Okay.
Yeah, that's later when he comes back to his office. Yeah, we'll put a pin in it. So, on the street late at night, Patrick picks up a sex worker. Sex workers are highly brutalized in the book, and Patrick asks her to come back to his apartment, and she says she's not supposed to do that, but he entices her with money. Mary Harron says this is like a, almost kind of like deal with the devil situation. And in the car, he calls an escort service and orders another sex worker. And he stresses that she must be blonde. And Christy is doing amazing acting here because she doesn't have a lot of lines. And it's all like facial acting. And she really captures that experience. I mean, like, this is something I can speak to, like, of sizing up the situation. Like, I'm about to have sex with a stranger. I'm in a very stigmatized and dangerous position as a person. What's going on? Like, she's sizing it up. She's like, okay, he's ordering another girl. Like, you can see all of the pieces coming together. But I also think that there's something that people who don't have experience in the sex industry might miss here that they capture very well, which is it's significant that Christy is a street-based sex worker and the other sex worker is more high-end call girl.
Right.
It's a power play. Like, he's going to dress up the street hooker as like somebody that might be his girlfriend, right? That he's like going to have a threesome with this more high-end hooker. He enjoys, I think, fucking with them like this. Like, pitting.
I was definitely looking forward to hearing your take on these scenes, because I feel like this is going to be more, like, you'll have more things to say about it, but also, like, I feel like this movie's probably scarier for you than it is for me. I don't know. It's already kind
scary,
of like, oh, geez.
It's a scary
I just did want to say quick, earlier, I was like, stifling laughter. I'm not like laughing at the situation that these women are in or anything, but like, what is a strong candidate for like the funniest line in the movie to me is when he opens the door and greets her and he just immediately says, "Not really blonde, are you?" I don't know why, but I think that's so funny.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he also tells Christy that he tells her that her name is Christy, and so we don't know her real name, and his name is Paul Allen, and he is gonna, he has this little ritual where he's almost dressing the pig for slaughter, where he draws her a bath and he gives her Chardonnay, and he's like, "I want you to clean your vagina," and it's so, and she just does these things very mechanically, which is sort of exactly how it is. A guy says, "Do this," and in your head, you're like, "What a pig." And you just didn't do it. And some guys are more demanding than others. I definitely prefer men who treat me like a person and don't order me around. But that's a thing I've experienced. And at that point, when you realize that's the guy that you have, you're like, all right. And you're just like, I'm just going to do this. Like, this is, let's just get through this. And you can see that happening for her. It was really brilliant acting where she's like, all right, like I'm just, this is what it is right now. And he tells Christy to dry off and pick a robe. And he greets the other escort and he says, not really blonde, are you? More dirty blonde. And she's like annoyed, right? And also sizing up his character, because if a guy said that to me, I'd be like, this is a dick. This guy's an asshole. Like, this is gonna suck. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna call you Sabrina. So he sits them down on the couch and he's like, don't you want to know what I do? And they're both like, not really, no. Which I love. I love how they don't give a shit and they don't try to hide that they don't give a shit. They're like, this guy does not see us as people, so we're just getting through this. We're coming up on another strong candidate for the funniest line in the movie when he's like, come on, don't you want to know what I do? And they're like, no. And then like in a little bit, I think she's like kind of like, okay, he wants us to be interested in him. So she's like, wow, what a nice place here. How much did you pay for it? And he just says, actually, that's none of your business, but it wasn't cheap. I just thought that was so funny. But it's also he's such a piece of shit. Like, he's like, please find me interesting. Please find me interesting. And then the second that they do, he's like, there it is. Now I can exert power over you and treat you like shit. Well, it belies her class, because an upper class person would never ask a question like that. Like that's a fucking WASP Gentile rule. You don't ask things like that. And that's, I'm always asking people what shit costs, but I know I'm not supposed to. I just don't care. But that's like a WASP social moray. Like, you don't ask those things. So she's betraying that she's low class. So he starts monologuing about Phil Collins. He's going on a rant about Genesis. And as he's monologuing, he begins the threesome and he starts directing them. And the women look at each other like, here we go. And he sets up a video camera, which I gotta say costs extra. And he's thinking the same thing. I was like, I wouldn't necessarily be cool with that. I would be like, oh, hold on. That's a new thing where you need to negotiate that. Like, yeah. I mean, nowadays, I don't know what it's called in the 80s, but nowadays it's called PSE, porn star experience. And it costs extra. So he sets up the video camera and he starts directing the women around like Barbie dolls. And he tells Christy to like, get on your knees and show your asshole to Sabrina. And Sabrina's like, dance. He like tells her to do like a sexy dance. And this is my favorite line where he's like, Sabrina, don't just stare at it, eat it. This is a pretty good one. And they have a terrible, I think it's original to the film too. I was waiting for it in the book and it didn't happen. They have a terrible inspired piece of writing where Patrick stares at himself in the mirror. And Mary Harron's flexing, and Mary Harron's commentary about this is really great, because she's like, we didn't know how to convey, because it's all happening subjectively in his head in the book. We didn't know how to convey that this is one thing for him and one thing for the sex workers. Like, it's a different experience for them. And I think they actually do that really brilliantly. Yeah. In the film. Like, you see how this fantasy is for him and the way that he's staring at himself and flexing in the mirror and how bored they are. It's a super effective and iconic image. So just like the perfect encapsulation of like, this is all about him. It's like him getting off on his own. He's like masturbating to himself in another person, Yeah. So they have this threesome, and apparently also Christian Bale like came up with a list of positions that he thought they should do when they shot this scene, and he got it also specifically from, he like rented a bunch of porn tapes, and he was like, this is where he would be sourcing these things from, so let me get period accurate pornographic material and replicate these positions. Little method stuff going on there. Right. So then the three of them are passed out in bed, and I said, ladies, go home. That is the part that was confusing to me in both iterations of the story. I'm like, why are you still here? Like, that should be, and like when he says we're not done yet, I'm like,
okay, well, let's negotiate. Lex is going to cost more because, like, we're
Right.
done to me, right? Like,
Well, these are the kind of moments where I'm like, I don't know if these people really understand sex work that well.
yeah.
But I'm suspending disbelief because it works for the movie. So
Sure.
they ask if they can go, and Patrick opens a drawer and he has like various implements of torture, and he's like, we're not done yet. And then the next thing, we don't see the violence, but we see him giving them cash as they leave. And I said, always get the cash first. Come on. and it looks like he beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, this is maybe the most harrowing part of the whole movie to me. Like, and again,
It's
another
awful.
really brilliant way to like translate text to screen. Because like in the book, you just describe every bit of it, and it's horrific. But like a way to make that just as horrific while appeasing the MPAA, right? And like while keeping your runtime trim is to do what they did here, where you show the instruments and you show the aftermath, but you don't show the in between. And like I don't know, just something about the way that it's cut, the sound design, the way that the women are acting, like it's like, oh my God, he fucked these people up. And like, it's, I don't know.
There's
and like
always-
the crudeness of the instruments that you're looking at too. It's like wire and hangers and,
Ooh. There's also there's a moment in Christie's acting that makes me want to cry, where she just grabs, she just doesn't even look at him and just grab. I've done that, where you're just like,
yeah.
get away from me, like, but I'm taking your money though, because I went through that. Okay, so horrible. Patrick McDermott and Van Patten, they're at like a lounge club. I think it's the Harvard Club, and they're having cigars and talking about how women don't have good personalities. And it's really funny and ironic because they're all carbon copies of each other also. Like, what do you mean? You don't have a good personality.
Yeah.
So Ed Gein mention.
Yeah, really. That was fun.
If you don't know, Celeste and I did a review episode for my Patreon on the Ed Gein series on Netflix. Check it out.
Check it out.
I fucking love this because Patrick Bateman is like, did you know what Ed Gein said about women? And one of the guys is like, Ed Gein, the maitre d' at Canal Bar. And I don't think, I actually think this is misattributed. Ed Gein didn't say this. This was Ed Kemper.
I didn't look it up, but I was like, that doesn't sound like something he would say after the amount of like research we did on him. I was like, that doesn't sound right at all.
No, it's Ed Kemper that said this, where when he sees a woman on the street, a beautiful woman on the street, part of him wants to talk to her and take her out and chat her up. And the other part of him wants to see what her head would look like on a stick. That's
another moment where he laughs too hard.
Yeah.
He's like attempting a confession, but then turning it into a joke, and it doesn't land. And it's like so uncomfortable, but it's also like they're not listening to him. And they're just like, I don't know what that was about. Moving on.
Well, and Mary Harron says that moment is crucial because you see that there's something wrong with him. And these other guys are assholes, but they're not psychos. And they're like, I don't know about all that, but like, we're just garden variety.
We're like pretty, like straightforward misogynists, and we don't think women have personalities, but like, chill out.
Right, exactly. But I actually think that's really kind of smart, because it's like, all right, are you that different though? Like, you don't necessarily fantasize about putting a woman's head on a stick, but you don't think of them as people anyway.
It's like I don't know, I'm thinking about like what the right wing is going through right now with like Nick Fuentes, where they're just like constantly like, stop saying that part out loud. You're not supposed to say that part, right? And so like they're all just like having a good time, and then he takes it one too far, and they're just like, ooh, we're not supposed to like say that.
Right. So Lewis Carruthers comes up to them and gets to try to get the men's opinion on his business card, and Patrick is enraged, and this is the moment that he decides he's going to kill Lewis. So he follows Lewis to the bathroom, and he puts on his kill gloves, and he goes to strangle Lewis. But Carruthers interprets it as a sexual overture, and he pulls back his glove and tenderly kisses his hand. And he's like, Patrick, why here? Why now? And it's actually kind of sweet and sad, because Lewis is so into him. in a
It
real
is.
way too. Like Lewis is another character who's like more real.
Yeah, he's really dumb and he's kind of lifeless as well, but there is something, it's for more understandable reasons, right? Because he's in the closet and he's like so obviously like this like fruity effeminate man that isn't fitting in, you know? And so you do feel for him. And there's this, it's even worse in the book. There's a scene in the book later. It's so heartbreaking, and it's like it's not fun for anyone listening to it. He's so cruel to him, and it's so pathetic, and it's just so.
What does he do again? I don't remember.
Oh, in the book, there's another scene where they run into each other at like a menswear store, and they're buying like ties together, and he literally gets on his like hands and knees and like is like crying and begging him like, I'm leaving for Arizona. Please come with me. I know like you're in love with me. I know you feel these things like, and Patrick is just so fucking mean to him and is just like screaming at him and is like, you know, embarrassing him, and it's rough.
Yeah, poor Lewis. I mean, homosexuality, important theme, more important in the book than in the movie.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, actually. I don't know, because Guinevere Turner said something that I hadn't quite connected as explicitly, where she was like, I'm pretty sure all of these dudes are closeted homosexuals. They're so obsessed with their appearance. By the way. Mm-hmm. And with like impressing each other, and they're so disinterested in like impressing other women. They're in impressing women. They're only interested in impressing other men. And I'm like, that's an interesting read on it, where like there is a queerness to like the level of like self-care and like, you know, sort of obsession with like looks and personality,
men, isn't it?
You know?
Yeah, like they're straight men are the gayest people on earth. Like they only care about impressing each other, looking good to each other. Like the whole thing
with like the gym dude, you know, they're not doing it for the women, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of my clients want to hear about me fucking other men, and I'm like, interesting. You interested, bro? Like it's, you know, they're obsessed. They're obsessed with dick.
And an important takeaway for anybody. I don't think that you're in this boat if you're listening to this podcast, but if you happen to be, you should know that it's okay to just be gay. You can just be gay. It's all right. You'll be okay. You'll feel better.
But yeah, there's and again, like there is a deeply closeted aspect to a lot of these men, and yeah, I think there's and their homophobia is so also just like a way for them to distance themselves from this thing.
Yeah. You know, there's also the thing where he doesn't kill Lewis. Maybe because it's so public, but like generally speaking, in the logic of the film, he could get away with it. And I think maybe it's that it's not just that because when he wants to kill him when he's feeling threatened, right? When he's feeling threatened by the business card and by his status is threatened, but it's like almost there's something deeper that's being called out in this interaction that like he doesn't know how to handle, and so he doesn't act violently. He just like runs away from it.
It reminds me of when he doesn't kill Jean. And it's like when somebody has actual feelings for him, it's like harder for him to do it. Like it changes the situation with Lewis, where he's like, oh, Lewis is not trying to best me. He loves me. Like he's
trying to connect.
With me. Yeah, he's
allergic to connection.
Yeah, it makes him so freaked out that he can't do the kill. And
also, washing his hands with gloves on is like another one of the funniest little moments.
It's so funny. And Lewis is like, where are you going? And he's like, I've got to return some videotapes, which is like one of his favorite excuses. Patrick leaves the club in a panic, and Carruthers gestures to him. He's like, call me. So Detective Kimball visits Patrick again, and he's like, where were you that night? And he's like, guess I was returning some videotapes. And he's trying to find out where Patrick was the night of Paul Allen's disappearance. This is the part where Kimball is like, Huey Lewis in the news. And Patrick freaks out and he says Huey is too black sounding for him. And I mean, and Kimball just is like, to each their own, which is like very
like that's a normal
80s.
Thing to say, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's very 80s. Like, you know, it's now people would freak out, but perhaps performatively, I don't know.
I think maybe this line sticks out to me because when he says something horrific, people act like he didn't say it. And this is maybe one of a handful, if any, times where somebody actually responds to the thing he said, but still brushes it off, you know?
Right.
Because he's not like, I don't know, he doesn't move on. He's like, oh, well, fair enough. It's like, wait, what?
Next, we see Patrick fucking Courtney. And it's like, it's more passionate than the sex with the hookers because it's not like as performative and he's like making a bunch of noise. But he's still disgusted immediately afterwards and gets up to put on his clothes.
Yeah. It feels very bare minimum. Like all he has to, like he's still fully dressed. He's just like done the bare minimum to like get it done and then be out of there. I don't know, it feels less, I think it's performative in a different way where it's still like asserting his like status and dominance and like taking
and
somebody away from
her.
like another
yeah and like maybe it's more passionate in that moment because he knows now that Lewis wants him, so it's like you know,
maybe he's thinking of him. Thinking about that ass,
right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. So Courtney asks if they can talk, and he's like, "You look marvelous. There's nothing to say." Poor Courtney. She's like, "If I don't see you before Easter, have a nice one, okay?" She's attempting to connect with him and is rebuffed, and then just lets it go.
Yeah,
it's the last time we see
like
her.
Recognizes the futility of that venture like pretty quickly.
Yeah. We're back at the club, and the club kids are living it up. I mean, this is 80s New York downtown. This is the era of the club kid. And these loser finance bros are doing coke in the bathroom, and they're annoyed because it's super weak. And there's this aggro moment where this guy in the stall next to him is like, "We're trying to do drugs." And Bryce freaks out at him, and he's like, "This faggot in the next stall." And he's like, "Sorry, dude, the steroids."
Another candidate for the funniest line in the movie. I'm gonna do this line if that's okay with the faggot.
Yeah, exactly. Been there.
So funny.
And I mean the homophobia, right? It just kind of permeates because that guy is also obviously gay. But you're on their turf, bro. Like you're at the fucking gay ass nightclub, bringing your homophobia there. And that guy also clearly hates them because he's like, these fucking loser finance bros. Like, we're trying to do drugs. Shut the fuck up. So Bryce and Bateman are talking up these like 3 blonde models. And they're being, you know, Bryce is being an asshole to them, like trying to show how stupid the women are. And there's this moment where they ask Patrick what he does, and he's like, "I'm in murders and executions." And the model
I'm so close to changing my bio on Instagram to into murders and executions. It's so good.
But she thinks he says mergers and acquisitions. So Patrick takes home one of the women, and this poor girl, she says, "I don't know, there's something sweet about you." And I'm like, this poor woman. So the next day at the office, Patrick is fondling a lock of blonde hair. So we're like, he killed her. And he puts it away, though, in his pocket when Jean knocks. And he's doing a crossword, and he's only writing in the words meat and bone. That's from the book, where all of the clues are meat and bone. And he's in a weird mood. He's wearing sunglasses. And he invites Jean to dinner. And he's like, "Where do you want to go?" "Wherever you want to go." And she says, "Dorsia." And panic sets in. And Patrick calls Dorsia and pretends to get a reservation. And he says to her, "Yeah, you're dressed okay, but that she'll want to change before they go out." At his apartment, Jean is admiring the view, and Patrick has a head in his fridge. I learned from the commentary that that's not a prop. That was the actress with a plastic bag over her head kneeling in the fridge and just trying not to breathe, because they didn't have the budget for that kind of prop. So
It's a good effect.
It's a very good effect, and it's also like funny and awful. Like it's, Jean has no fucking idea that she's in this den of horrors. Patrick is fondling knives in his kitchen while talking to Jean. He's prepared to kill her. He asks her if she feels fulfilled while he's like looking at a chainsaw and duct tape. He's like, Ted Bundy's dog was named Lassie. And she's like, who's Ted Bundy? And she's like, have you ever wanted to make someone happy? And he holds this weapon to her head. What is that? Is that like
It's a nail gun.
It's okay. It's a nail gun. And she
There's
doesn't notice.
a real brutal scene with a nail gun in the book. It's rough. But yeah, it's a nail gun.
And he's holding the nail gun to her head, and he's like, I guess I just want to have a meaningful relationship with someone special. But Evelyn calls and leaves a message. And Patrick tells Jean if she stays, he might hurt her. And she thinks he's talking about emotionally, like that he's unavailable. But he's talking about killing her, obviously. We know. She doesn't know. It's kind of a great...
Yeah, it's sort of, it's not from the book. It's sort of, again, like a kind of, what is the word I'm looking for? Putting different things together into one thing. Sort of a putting a bunch of scenes. Yeah, something like that.
Amalgamation.
Amalgamation. There you go. Of a couple different scenes in the book, kind of making it all work in one. And like he kind of says this to, I think it's the girl previous that said he was really sweet from the club that he does this to in the book, but here it works. I think it works really well with Jean as kind of like a substitute for the Dorcia scene in the book.
Right.
But it's a really clever bit of double entendre that's going on both ways, where he's like being very serious. He's like, you need to leave now or I'm going to kill you. And she's like, yeah, I'm always getting with emotionally unavailable men, like just not understanding the stakes, but still getting the point that she needs to leave,
Right. So Bateman has lunch with Kimball, and Kimball says that the night Paul Allen disappeared, his date book said he was with Marcus Halberstrom, but Halberstrom has an alibi. And in fact, part of Halberstrom's alibi is that he was having dinner with a group of people that included Patrick. More mistaken identity. Kimball says he thinks Paul Allen went nuts, but he's also hinting to Patrick that he knows he killed him. So again, some brilliant back and forth there. Bateman picks up Christy again. Poor Christy. And she's like, I had to go to the ER last time, so it's a no. But he tempts her with money. It's heartbreaking. He asks her how she is, and she's like, yeah, I might need surgery. And he writes her a check, and she gets out of the car. But he follows her, insistent, like waving money.
This message is sponsored by Greenlight. With school out, summer is the perfect time to teach our kids real-world money skills they'll use forever. Greenlight is a debit card and the #1 family finance and safety app used by millions of families, helping kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely. Parents can send their kids money and track their spending and saving, while kids build money confidence and skills in fun ways. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/Spotify. That's greenlight.com/Spotify.
Yeah, it's
really
also kind of
moment.
It's kind of harrowing because you either intuit this or you know it in retrospect that like he writes that check and he can write an absurd amount because he knows she's not going to cash it.
Right. Patrick says they're going to meet his friend Elizabeth at his new apartment, which is Paul Allen's apartment. Elizabeth is played by Guinevere Turner. And Elizabeth, she's wearing this like really beautiful silk suit. She's another sort of bourgeois, upper class, kind of empty person. It's referenced that she went to Sarah Lawrence. And Christy says, this is a lot nicer than your other apartment, which is very funny.
That's
and he's like, it's not that much nicer. Right and Patrick drugs the women by putting, probably would a Xanax in their drinks.
It's ecstasy in the book.
Oh, it's ecstasy in the book. Okay. And Elizabeth calls her drug dealer. And she also mentions that guy who disappeared, not knowing that they're in his apartment. I mean, nobody knows anything that's going on in this, like, and nobody knows who anybody is. What, you know, they're all empty people who are not paying attention to anything very deeply. And Patrick tries to get Elizabeth and Christy to have sex in front of him, and Elizabeth doesn't know that Christy is a sex worker, so she's just kind of taking her as like an equal. And she's like, is he always like this? You know, like, you know, trying to have like that camaraderie. But then we cut to them, you know, kind of high and fooling around while Bateman monologues about Whitney Houston, and Elizabeth laughs her ass off at him about this. She's like, you listen to Whitney Houston? Good for her.
It's a good one.
Christy's face.
Can I talk about Whitney
again.
Houston for a second?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
This is something that I have struggled with since first reading the book, because it's a really great bit throughout that he overanalyzes and overintellectualizes like terrible pop music.
But
he also likes Whitney
good.
Houston. But she's good, right? And
Yeah.
like he also likes the Talking Heads, which is like one of the best bands of all time, and like an actual art group, right? And like Whitney Houston, yeah, she was really popular, so maybe you could just explain it, but like he just listens to literally whatever's number one at the time, right? But she's also like a black woman, and like it just isn't in character for him to like Whitney Houston. And I think that this is a really clever way to like call that out in the film, because like I think what he's responding to is like a very sanitized version of Whitney Houston, because like he gets into her like well past her like stardom, so like he doesn't have to grapple with any of like where she came from or like the things that she's talking about. He gets to deal with like the most sanitized version of her that just talks about relationships generally, right? But I think the Elizabeth, I think that's her name, right? Sort of understands like, come on, this is not, you don't like this, you don't listen to this, this is like beyond your pay grade, like you don't know what you're talking about, you know? And with the Talking Heads, I think it's interesting because that's such a satirical group that's sort of like spitting in his face with their lyrics, but he doesn't get it. He just likes it because he thinks it's like the thing he's supposed to like, you know?
Right.
It's a little bit more subtle, but I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. Christy's face acting is great. She loves that Elizabeth is laughing at him. It's very funny. And threesome time. Patrick is fucking Elizabeth while Christy is like, I'm gonna leave, and she's like putting her clothes on, but then he starts tearing Elizabeth apart, and Christy flees in fear, and as she's fleeing she sees the dead bodies of women all over the apartment, and this also die yuppie scum graffiti on the wall, and maybe like that kind of reminded me of like the Manson murders, like when they put like Die Piggy and stuff on the wall to try to frame other people, to try to frame
It's
Black
like,
Power
it's like Eddington.
groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to make it look like it was.
That's a really good. That's a good take on why that's there. I thought maybe he was like role playing like somebody who isn't a piece of shit. Where you get like, this is another reason I can hate Paul Allen. I could pretend to be better than this, you know. But I think that that's probably what it is. It's more just like a red herring.
Right. Bateman chases Christy, but she fights back, running out of the apartment, banging on doors for help, but no one does. In the commentary, Mary Harron was like, well, obviously someone would open their door in real life. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know. But I also think it's a really good visual sort of representation of like how little people care about, well, women, but specifically sex workers, right? And like, again, it's just like, we keep getting more and more exaggerated and histrionic of like what he can get away with. And like, you know, this scene is impossible. Like the way that he's like screaming and revving a chainsaw and dropping it down the stairwell or whatever, like it's not really possible, like if you take it literally, but like thematically it works, where he's like at his peak of ridiculousness and like complete like open violence, and like nobody comes to save her, because that's what happens in real life. Nobody cares enough to like stick up for sex workers and like protect them from like they just want to criminalize it and like drive it further underground and like out of sight, out of mind. That's not my business, you know, like that's very real. And this is just kind of an exaggerated version of it, where like I think the way that the ridiculousness of the chainsaw drop is kind of representing to me that like this is always going to happen. Like there was not a version of this where she was going to get away. Like he's He's decided she was going to die at the beginning, and that's what's going to happen because he always gets his way and because nobody cares enough to stop it.
Right.
It's really fucked up.
Yeah, and I also love that she fights back. But he pursues her completely naked and covered in blood and wearing sneakers. And he kills her in a very absurd manner, like you said, by dropping a chainsaw on her as she runs down this like spiral stairs. And he screams in rage when she dies. At a restaurant, Patrick draws his kill on a placemat. Evelyn, who he's with, does not notice at all. And he says, my need to engage in homicidal behavior on a massive scale cannot be corrected. And she doesn't hear him. He tries to end the relationship, but she's not listening. And she's like, but your friends are my friends and my friends are your friends. And
I really like the idea of negotiating. Well, that doesn't really make sense logistically. So no, I'm vetoing it.
Right. And he's like, you can have them. I also love how she's like, you're inhuman. And he's like, I'm in touch with humanity. And, he also says, you're not terribly important to me. And she sobs and he leaves and he's like, I have to return some videotapes.
This is another scene where in the book it's way sadder and it's way more pathetic. And like some of her humanity kind of comes through and she's like, this is really pathetic scene where she's like, well, what do I have to do for you to still want me? Like, and he says, I don't know, drink beer. And she's like, cool. And she like gets the waiter over and she's like, what beer do you like? I'll order that. And it's like so pathetic and so sad. And you kind of like, there's a little bit of humanity in like her character because she's just kind of been like a hollow shell doing kind of the same thing. But in this one, I think that that's removed. And I think that that's an interesting choice because I've heard people argue that this humanizes the women more. And I don't know that I agree with that because in this scene in particular, like she's just kind of fake crying. And then it's kind of it. Like she treats it like a business transaction that didn't go well, you know?
Right. It's a good point. I also love the part where she like looks at she sees a woman she knows and she's like, I love your bracelet. And apparently Reese Witherspoon improvised that. Cat
She's
eating ATM scene. Yeah, she's really good. We get the cat eating ATM scene where Patrick, an ATM tells him to feed it a stray cat. And he takes out a gun and as he's about to like shoot the cat and like feed it into the ATM, this old woman is like, what are you doing? And he shoots the old lady. And this is when it starts to become very surreal. So like the police pull up and they start to chase him and he runs down the street, triggering car alarms. They pursue him. They get into a full-on shootout and a police car explodes. And then Patrick basically shoots a doorman in an office and shoots a janitor. And then he enters his building. And but this one, instead of shooting the doorman, he signs in. Very funny. And he goes upstairs to his office and he leaves a frantic confession voicemail on his lawyer's answering machine. And he starts listing a lot of murders, and lots of these we don't see. But they're in the book. And
it's a great bit of adaptation where like every single one of those things is like catching you up on all the scenes in the book that you didn't get to see, all the different murders and violent stuff. And so it's very effective in like making you understand the scale of this. Like it's not just a couple isolated incidents. Like it's something that he does constantly, you know?
Yeah, and he doesn't remember how many people he's killed. And he has videos of the murders, which we also don't see him doing in the movie. He also cries as he confesses that he ate some of them and tries to cook them. And that is very Ted Bundy because that was like actually a taboo thing for, I don't even think it's cannibalism. I think it was the necrophilia with Ted Bundy where it took a lot for them to get him to admit that he had done that. That was like the shameful thing. Rape and murder is okay, but the shameful thing was that he fucked the corpses. And for Patrick Bateman, the shameful thing is that he ate them. I wonder why that is.
Yeah. I also am a little bit puzzled by it because I think it comes from a scene in the book where he attempts to eat one of his victims and he's crying as he's trying to cook it because he doesn't know how because he's literally never cooked anything. And you can't like ask someone on this. But I think it's also a moment where he's like, this isn't working. I'm trying to find fulfillment or something like, and you know, I'm kind of guessing in real time, but cannibalism is often a sort of metaphor for like a very overwhelming connection where like you're literally eating this other person.
Yes,
and I feel like that's him like trying
yeah.
so hard to connect with somebody, he can't do it, and he's just like
no, he
stopping.
can't even do that. Like it, yeah, that's the it's like a. It's, I mean, even Dahmer, he wanted to connect and love these people so much that he, tried to eat them. But, Patrick Bateman
this is also
is like more soulless.
This is also the sequence in the film, the only one that I will argue doesn't literally happen. I think this is the one where he's having a bit of a hallucination, or at least it's not happening in the way it plays out on screen. And I think we get a lot of visual clues for that. Like, obviously, an ATM did not ask him for a cat. Also, in the commentary, the Guinevere Turner, I hope I keep not messing up her name.
No, that's her name, yeah.
Okay. She says that this was like a great bit in the book. I might have missed it. I don't know. I read the whole thing pretty fast, but like I don't remember the cat scene being in the book, and I think that was added to like start you off with something so completely absurd that it like cues the audience of like this scene is like not to be trusted, right? And like he shoots a car and it blows up. That happens in the book
even
too.
he
And it's like,
in that scene when the car blows up, he's like, what?
He's like, and then there's helicopters coming after him, which is like so much. I think that's more like how it feels for him, is like that's the level to which he's being pursued, and he just kind of feels like he can finally give up the charade and like give in and give up. And that's also the source of the sort of catharsis that he's attempting to have, but as we'll see is denied. So yeah, this is the scene that I think gets people a lot, like it confuses people a lot, where they're like, oh, the whole thing wasn't happening. But I'm like, no, I think there's clues in each individual scene that can tell you, is this really happening or is this not, in universe, so to speak. And I imagine he went on a shooting spree and just didn't get caught, but that's probably how it was feeling in his head, is like he's losing his mind and like everyone's out to get him. But in actuality, nobody notices or cares.
Yeah, because he's a privileged white guy. Patrick showers at his apartment. He puts on a suit and he goes to Paul Allen's, and everything is painted white, and there are people there looking at the apartment, and he has this confrontation with the realtor, and it's like very confusing to him because he's like, what the fuck is real and what isn't real? Patrick frantically calls Jean from a payphone, and he's having a complete mental break. And Gene is like very concerned about him. And he says at one point, he's like, stop sounding so fucking sad. Like he can't handle anybody having actual feelings for him.
His line delivery of just say no here is also very funny.
Yes.
Real quick. I also just want to say that this scene with the realtor, I think also trips people up, where they're like, oh, see, it's clear that he never actually killed Paul Allen and like that didn't happen. But I think it's one of the more chilling parts where like they're fully aware that happened, and they're just covering it up because it's going to reduce the value of the rental property. And they're like, who cares about two dead hookers and this guy that I guess has disappeared or something? I don't know, whatever. Like we got to sell the house,
I mean, I think it's like purposely ambiguous, right? Like I think that is one read, and then the other read is that like, oh, it didn't happen. I think we're not supposed to know. Like I think that's not the point. The point is like it could be sinister. It could also just be that this guy is crazy. And
maybe I'm biased because one of those I think is so much more interesting than the other one. Whereas like, if he's just imagining it all, it's like, okay, to what end?
It was all a dream. Yeah, like that's not as I feel you. That's not as interesting. But what I do think is interesting is the ambiguity of it. So Gene goes into his desk and finds his planner where he's drawn all these violent images of murdered women. And Patrick pulls himself together. He meets the guys at Harry's. And he sees his lawyer, and he approaches him, and he asks if he got his message. And Harold is like, it was hilarious. And like to pretend to be Patrick Bateman, that dork, like he would do any of that stuff. And he thinks Patrick is this guy named Davis. And he's like, Bateman is such a dork, such a boring, spineless lightweight. And Patrick is like, I'm Patrick Bateman, and I killed Paul Allen. And imploring him to listen to his confession. And Harold says that is impossible because he had dinner with Paul Allen twice in London 10 days ago. But that could be true or it could not be. Like these people, none of these people know who each other is. So it could have been somebody else.
This is another one where people will cite it often where they're like, see, he didn't kill Paul Allen. Paul Allen's in fucking London.
Yeah,
but I'm like, dude, he's mistaking a guy for another guy literally right now. Like, I think that's plausible, but I think the more, again, it's more interesting, but I also think it's bared out in the text is like, he's fully aware that he's lying. He's fully aware that Patrick Bateman killed all these people and attempted to confess, and he's not letting him. It's like a boys club thing. It's like there's like a policy in the police department where like you stick up for each other no matter what. And that's sort of what I think is happening here, where he's like, hey man, don't fuck up the bag right now. Like if you confess to all this, the whole house of cards comes down. We can't let it happen. Like you get away with this. That's how this works. We all get away with murder, figuratively and literally. And you're fucking it up for us right now. And I'm not going to let you do it. And he's like staring at him like, hey man, stop it. Like, enough. I'm not going to listen to this. There's a lot in that stare.
And there's a lot in that stare that's not just like, oh, this guy's crazy. It's like, shut up. Like, you know, like you said, like, stop trying to have a real moment with me. Like, it all falls apart if you get in trouble for your crimes. So Jean is still looking at Patrick's drawings. Mary Harron said that they almost wrote it so that she like discovers that he's been murdering, but they wanted to leave it more ambiguous, that she just sees that he's like a sicko, but doesn't know what he's been doing.
This is an interesting change from the book as well, because in the book it's kind of ambiguous, but it's sort of implied that they have a relationship at the end. And like,
don't they get married?
Newer commentary, it's not clear. He says that he thinks they're going to get married at the beginning of the book. He's like, this is my secretary who's in love with me and I'm probably going to end up marrying. And then at the end, he's like sending her extravagant Valentine's gifts. It's a little unclear. But in this, Mary Harron in the commentary that I listened to was like, I'm going to be real, I didn't like that. I think she deserves better. I like this character. She deserves to know that like this guy's bad news. So that's kind of what this is doing. And I think it also gives the audience a little bit of a release of like somebody sees what's going on here, you know?
So the men are watching Reagan on TV, and Patrick sits down confused and shaken. Bryce, moment of humanity with Bryce, with Reagan, where he's like, how can he lie like that?
Yeah, this is a confusing moment for me. Because like if you're these people, that's your guy, you know? Is this another like, oh, I'm actually like a cool lib kind of moment where it's like, I'm not, I think, just like a fuddy-duddy Reagan guy?
I think Bryce is more of like a libertarian type, like more, you know, Bret Easton Ellis-y, like, you know, I'm actually cool sort of thing. And I think it's to show that Bryce is like one of the only like real people.
I think you're right. I think that's a good read. Maybe that's why he's the only person that Bateman respects, is he's the only person that actually has the fucking guts to look at that and be like, you know, this is like a crock of shit, right? Like this guy's full of it.
And Bryce says like Reagan pretends to be this harmless old man, but inside, and he's like, what do you think, Bateman? And Bateman is like, whatever. Final monologue. Great lines. Where it was actually supposed to end.
It's so good.
Yeah, I think it was originally supposed to end with like a Barry Manilow song and like the Twin Towers and some dramatic Twin Tower scene, but they nixed it for this. And he says like, my pain is constant and sharp. I do not hope for a better world for anyone. My punishment continues to elude me, and I gain no deeper knowledge of myself. This confession has meant nothing. And that's his punishment, that's his hell, is to continue to live among these people. And at least to be caught and prosecuted would be an authentic experience. But no, he's doomed.
It would also make him kind of extraordinary. It would make him stand out. And he's denied that. He's like, no, you're just like all of us, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point too.
It's not the final scene in the book. There's a little bit more. And I like the way the book ends better for the book. But I like the way that this ends. I think this is actually a very good choice to end this on this monologue, because it kind of leaves you on a very haunting note that kind of summarizes his character and the themes, you know?
Yeah, and it ends with that close-up of his eyes. And there's the very on-the-nose comparison to Reagan, but it works.
Yeah, it's like the most like overt sort of assertion of the politics of the film. I mean, I would argue with the novel too, but especially with the film, where it's like, in case you missed it, this guy is fucking Reagan, right? Like, that's what we're satirizing here.
Right. But yeah, it works though. And Mary Harron said, you know, it takes place in 1987, but there weren't like a ton of overt references to like contemporary events. So she felt like it was okay to have this one at the end. It wasn't like too heavy-handed. It's a great ending and obviously very haunting. And that's American Psycho. But I guess before we end, Celeste, I wanted to ask you, I don't know, if this were updated, what would these guys be like?
What would they be like?
I mean, I feel like
question.
They would be tech bros.
That's exactly what I was going to say. These are Silicon Valley guys.
Yeah, they would be tech bros.
And their idol is Elon Musk. Straight up.
Their idol's Elon Musk.
Or maybe it's still Donald Trump. We're just still here, you know? Like,
right.
Still Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
They would be jerking off to like AI porn. There would obviously be like incel stuff. I don't know. I sort of like when I was watching this, I was like, oh, misogynists used to be so much more good looking and elegant. And like
to try a little bit.
Yeah, they're like little suits and stuff. I'm like, well, at least they look good. And now everybody looks like shit.
They all have broccoli haircuts.
Yeah.
Sorry if any broccoli hair listeners are catching strays right now, but you know I'm right.
Yeah, but there would be, I don't know, like, I feel like the evolution of because these guys were, you know, they were still very powerful. And it's not that the guys now are not very powerful. It's just that they think they're not. Like, there's all this, like, you know, male loneliness epidemic shit.
Yeah, it was like a victim complex with it. As before, they were like, yeah, we have all the power and it's awesome. And we're going to keep it that way. And now they're like, no, the currency of power is victimhood and that's what I want. So I'm going to like construct.
Such a good point.
It's like I'm going to construct a victim narrative for myself for the social cachet.
Right. That's such a good point. Yeah, it would be like they would be even more pathetic.
It would be insufferable. Also, though, I was thinking as you were asking me, like, you can't even satirize it anymore because, like, there's at least a sheen of respectability where, like, you could create a satire like this where, like, oh, but they're actually like monstrous people who like hack women up and shit. But like, Andrew Tate just does this and like says it and brags about it, and people are like, cool, that rules. That's what I want. And so they identify as like monstrous pieces of shit. It's like vice signaling is like so big right now where they're all trying to out fucking do each other and who can be the biggest piece of shit. And it's like, how do you even satirize that? I don't know. I guess Luca Guadagnino is going to give it a shot. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, is it going to be set in the current day?
I don't know. We'll see. Who the fuck are you going to cast? I don't understand how you do this role. Like, you are in the shadow of this performance kind of inherently. Do you like do it completely different? Do you try to like match it? I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Well, Celeste, this was a great conversation. We talked about American Psycho for longer than the movie is. But there's so much to say. And
someone should hire us for the audio commentary.
And yeah, I mean, if you were to update it too, you would also need to like, you know, update the misogyny of it. Like there would have to be an element of trans misogyny as well. And
yeah, they would be discussing like how to clock the different women and like which one are the real women, you know, where's the biological women in this room, you know, and like,
exactly.
There would just be this like panic or like transvestigating, and also like, oh, I heard he like, you know, fucked a tranny or something. Like that's how they would get each other. It's like, because like now half of these tech bros are gay and like married to dudes, you know, so it's like whatever, you know, maybe some of the guys are gay, you know, and so it's just like the straight guys just like trying to find out who is only fucking cis women or whatever, you know?
Yeah, because a lot of, I don't know, because there's also an element in these tech bro circles of like a sheen of progressivism. So I don't know, maybe there would be some like performative trans rights stuff, but then there would be like violence against like a trans sex worker or something.
I think unfortunately that is the difference between setting it in 2015 versus 2025, because I think that was true for like the 2010s, and now it's like that is like anathema to these people to like have any decent opinions or compassion whatsoever.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, on that bleak note, thank you so much, Celeste, for coming on.
Thank you. I've had such a good time going deep on this. I've been meaning to do it like anyway, and like it's been really enriching to like really sit with this and interrogate what the text is doing, but also why I so deeply connect with it myself. I don't know. It's just such a banger, and it's so much fun to talk about. Like, I know I kind of hopefully this episode doesn't end up too long, because I couldn't help myself with all the different things I wanted to say. No, it's great.
And I love like how deep you went, and like that you reread the book. I mean, like I always like so honored when people like do research to be on the, like that's amazing. So yeah, that's a huge compliment, and like, yeah, I'm very, very happy to have talked about this with you, and I'm sure you'll be back, of course.
I hope so.
Of course. All right. Bye.
Oh, should we plug stuff real quick?
Oh, yeah, we plugged at the top, but do it again. Where can we find you?
Yeah, youtube.com/Celeste de la Cabra, Instagram.com/Celeste de la Cabra, Patreon and TikTok at Celeste de la Cabra, and letterboxd.com/Inhuman Ecstasy.
Oh, that's
are the
good.
places I can be found on the internet.
Yeah, and you know where to find me. Girls Guts Giallo on Instagram, Girls Guts Giallo on Letterboxd and TikTok, and patreon.com/Girls Guts Giallo. Also, my Substack is Girls Guts Giallo. So it's the same.
Yeah,
everywhere.
You put out a really interesting article recently about euphemisms in our sort of online baby-brained hellscape website.
I did. Yes,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Let me tell you real quick.
Yeah.
I thought, what a quick, easy project to put my podcast segments on YouTube. Oh no, they're about porn, and like YouTube is a website for babies. And so I have spent hours tailoring everything to make it safe for that platform. And it's a nightmare, but we're doing it.
The internet is a terrible place. And, yeah, so I wrote Celeste is referencing that I wrote an essay this week for Substack about baby talk, unaliving and graping, and how I fucking hate that shit, and I'm not gonna do it. So, yeah, check me out over on Substack. People seem to like that piece. People love when I'm incendiary, so I gotta do more of that, I guess. They let
Ever the contrarian. In the tradition of our text today.
Yeah, so follow us and support us, and yeah,
that's it. Thank you.